afternoon. It was exactly 95 degrees out. I was there. Okay. Again, I hope I am planting the seed and common sense will prevail in a proactive way going forward to make this a reality. Number two, afternoon. It was exactly 95 degrees out. I was there. Okay. Again, I hope I am planting the seed and common sense will prevail. Active way going forward to make this a reality. And number two, afternoon. It was exactly, if I may. Okay, I recently heard a rumor that I know for a fact was circulating around town that I was first and foremost totally in favor of a property tax to fund the purchase of the 4,000 acres of state trust land. I want to clear the air publicly right now in front of my colleagues, the staff, and the citizens of Cave Creek. First off, I am honest, transparent, and very upfront about my feelings and stances on all town challenges and issues. Let me be perfectly clear in this public forum right now. I have already stated this, but again, I want to see this land get purchased through, number one, private funding, private fundraising, that is. Number two, federal and state government grants. And number three, local collaborations and partnerships. If we cannot get this done in these ways, then begrudgingly, I will support a bond election because this is probably our final crack at this land. Thank you for your time.
Okay, any other announcements from council? A call to the public?
No request to speak, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Town manager report. Grady, town manager report.
Just quickly, Mayor and Council, I just wanted to let you know that all of the members of the ad hoc task force on open space have been notified of their appointment. And we will be having our first meeting next Wednesday at 2 p.m. in this room here. And the public, of course, will be welcome to attend, and we will be putting out the meeting notice and agenda tomorrow afternoon. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Which brings us to the highlight of the evening is we have two presentations tonight. The first one is by the Honorable Terry Goddard, and I have a few comments before he starts to kind of give a framework of where Cave Creek stands. We're very honored to have him here. He has demonstrated leadership throughout the state in his long career with the state. Cave Creek is maybe the town with the most challenge for water. We're 90% dependent on the Central Arizona Project, of which President Goddard is heads that committee. And we're estimating right now, we're working with a number of a 25% cut. Which means that if the 25% cut, or it could be higher, does go into effect, then that's going to mean that we, number one is promised water. We will not be able to meet the promised water. Number two is there is a likelihood, if it's cut is high enough, that even our deliveries to our own residents who are now getting water will be at risk. So we've been working on water conservation for many years, including restricted development many years ago, 5 years ago or so. The vice mayor to my right, when she was first elected, did one of the things that you should all be grateful for. She championed and got the council to approve water banking, and that year or so of water is what we're looking at to tide us over, because our government has run us up against the deadline. We can't build anything. End of next year is when the cuts are slated to be in here, and that water is going to see us through until we can figure out with the help of other people, because there is no water sitting around ready for somebody to pick up. So we've got a real challenge ahead of us. We've reactivated the utilities committee. We're having a meeting next week to focus on residential conservation, and we're working with the golf courses, with Phoenix, with Surprise, with Peoria. We're reactivating our wells. We put in the interconnect project, which is going to be our lifeline to water from all over central Arizona. We also restricted new meters. We do not, subdivisions have got to bring their own water. We limit the amount of water that new meters can use, and that was done years ago. So we have been hard at work on water for a long time. We've got new purchases that we're looking at right now. And one thing I can promise you is that the water is going to be more expensive, and that's going to be Central Arizona, everything in Central Arizona, it's going to cost more money. I saw an article in the paper the other day that said that in 2024, Gilbert raised water rates 100%. So we are looking for partners all over Central Arizona to work with us. We're reactivating wells. Unfortunately, the wells are in 2 aquifers that are dead or dying at very, very small capacity. There's not the big aquifer that's down in Phoenix. We have these tiny little aquifers because there's a mountain between us and Phoenix. And so we have a limited supply there. So Terry's visit is going to give everyone a feeling for what the challenge of the state is. It's bigger than we can handle. It's at the national level because it involves 7 states, and we're looking for his leadership. And I just want to say before I read his bio and introduce him that I think that CAP has done a magnificent job. They're a wonderful organization, and the further you get away from Cave Creek and the closer to Washington, the level of the type of job being done drops off dramatically. Running us up against a deadline like the 2026 expiration is political crime, in my view. So I'd like to introduce Terry. Terry Goddard was elected to his 3rd full term on the Central Arizona Water Conservation District Board of Directors on November 7th, 2024, to represent Maricopa County until December 31st, 2030. Mr. Goddard also previously served as a member of the CAWCD board from 2001 to 2002. He is currently serving his 3rd term as board president and previously served as board vice president. Terry is an attorney with Goddard Law Offices, PLC. He served as mayor of Phoenix from 1984 to 1990 and as Arizona Attorney General from 2003 to 2011. Terry earned a BA from Harvard and a law degree from Arizona State University College of Law. Go Devils. Terry was born in Tucson, Arizona. And so I'd like you to join me in welcoming Terry for his comments.
Thank you, Mayor, for that too generous introduction. I greatly appreciate it. And I see my time here is 3 minutes, so I could sit down. I mean, you've just given 90% of my speech. I've got some PowerPoints, and I jump into them somewhat timorously, given what you've just said, Mayor, because you put it in stark perspective. We as a state, it's not just Cave Creek. We as a state are facing a very difficult water future. Regardless of what happens in the negotiations that are going on right now, we've got a much reduced supply coming from the Colorado River. And that's what I'm going to talk about here. And I apologize because I think many of the council, many of your citizens already know much of this history. So I'm going to go pretty fast because what I want to get to is sort of a wrap on what, Mayor, you just said, which is we're facing in a very short time the absolute imperative of Arizona leaders, Arizona citizens to pull together, to have a unified voice. Colorado's been doing it to us for the last several years. And frankly, we haven't responded until recently when our Director of Water Resources did a op-ed piece in the Denver Post. And you would have thought that he had just assaulted a nunnery or something. I mean, it was the reaction from the Upper Basin was volcanic, but what he said was exactly what has been happening, which is a failure to try to negotiate in good faith over the future of this river. So if I may, I'll take a quick shot here at the PowerPoint, but please forgive me. I think I'm going to go pretty rapidly through these slides.
You have all the time you need.
Well, let's be realistic. You've got a lot of presentations tonight, but I'll try to wrap it up. Would we say in 15, 20 minutes?
Take all the time you need.
Well, thank you. You're too generous, and I'd be happy, obviously, to answer questions. But let me start with trying to learn how to use the clicker. There we go. Here are the sources. I think you already know this, but Arizona gets about 1/3 of its water from the Colorado River, a renewable resource that started, I was mayor of Phoenix when the first deliveries appeared in 1985. And the slogan then was the lifeline is online. And by that, they meant the CAP canal delivery system. And now I think the slogan is appropriately preserve our lifeline, because that single canal, and I'm still in awe of the engineering that brought it to us, has done more to elevate the Arizona economy than any other single factor, except perhaps the sun. It's been an extraordinary change for all of the service area. And by that, I mean Maricopa, Pima, and Pinal counties. That's all we serve, but it's 80% of the state, and it's about 90% of the population. Here's where we get the water, and this needs to be emphasized. I've just got the one slide, but you look here and see the division of upper and lower basin, but also where the Colorado River comes from. And it starts in Grand Lake, not too far from Denver in the Rocky Mountains, and comes down through the Grand Canyon, through Arizona, and then ultimately to the Gulf of Baja California. It's an amazing river. I'm looking forward to a float trip in a couple of weeks because it is one of the scenic marvels, I think, of the world. You all know that. But it also is the water source primarily for 40 million people, 5 million acres of farmland, a burgeoning economy, and it has been used and perhaps overused to an extraordinary amount. It always bothered my father, and now I get to have the problem that the Columbia and the Willamette dump 100 million acre feet a year into the bay up in Oregon. The total volume of the Colorado is, in a good year, about 12 million acre feet. So we use our water really well here in the West. This goes through a little bit of the service area. I mentioned the 40 million people, the major cities, 30 tribes. Did I leave anything out? Well, the two lakes, and we'll talk a little more about Lake Powell and Lake Mead. But they are the largest reservoirs in the country, some of the largest in the world. And together they have 60 million acre feet of storage. Now, we haven't seen that since the year 2000. It's been a tale of diminishing reservations in the past. Now, we are ruled, and I use that word fairly loosely, by something called the Colorado Compact, and more broadly, what's called the law of the river. And somebody said the law of the river is what 7 states say it is, and that's pretty accurate. But back in 1922, a group of 7 men, older men, as you can see in this picture, got together in Santa Fe and divided the river. And it took them a while. They were chaired by a guy who was then the Secretary of Commerce, Herbert Hoover. And they came to a conclusion finally at the end of 1922. And it was to divide the river into upper and lower basin. That was really a brilliant lawyer named Dolph Carpenter from Colorado basically came up with the idea in order, because we were not able to figure out which state would get what out of the river. They were not real sure how much water was in the river in 1922. And what they did know was wrong. They had been using for their historical analogy years which now we know were some of the highest flow years in the history of the Colorado River, running around 20 million acre feet. So they thought they were very safe to say, well, the upper basin gets 7.5, lower basin gets 7.5, and we'll reserve something for Mexico, which ultimately became 1.5 additional. So they were counting on a flow based on their calculations of 16.5 million acre feet. Today, our reliable hydrology says we may be getting, in a good year, 12 million acre feet, but in more likely in a dry year, and we've had a bunch of them together here in the 2020s, we're closer to 10 to 11 million acre feet. Well, obviously, that's a big change. Now, there's some reasons why it hasn't created a crisis before now. It certainly has created one now, and I'll go into those in just a minute. I'd be happy to take questions, but I'll skip through. The CAP does unite Arizona communities to an incredible degree. It's a piece of pipe that goes from the Colorado River, 336 miles to Tucson, just south of Tucson. It lifts the water 3,000 feet. So we're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, energy user in the state of Arizona, because that pumping, that's a lot of water, that's a lot of weight. And the biggest, our secret weapon is Lake Pleasant. It's about halfway between Parker and Tucson. And it's a place where we can put water when we can pump it cheaply and then be able to draw it down in the times when it's so desperately needed in the summer. So that's the secret. It causes Lake Pleasant, as you probably know, to go up sometimes as much as 30 feet when it's got a lot of water in it. And then it goes down and all the docks are on hinges because they have to accommodate that. Our service area, I said, is the three counties and the 11 tribal entities. But I think more important than that, we are through our contracts, and we're not a retail provider as you are, as most of the cities are. We're just a wholesale provider. We just try to get the water to you, but we try to get it to you reasonably and at a price that can be predicted easily. And about half today, and I'll go into why it's reduced in a minute, but about half of our deliveries are to cities and towns, to municipal water, and about half are to tribal entities. None of it is to agriculture anymore. Ag, if it gets watered at all through Colorado River water, is through tribal contracts. So what I just said is on the screen now. So I'm ahead of myself. And we have to have Horseshoe Bend somewhere in any description of the Colorado River. So there it is. Please enjoy it. It's amazing. And we'll go on. Okay, the drought. There are a number of things causing our constraints on the Colorado. But one of them is that since the year 2000, when both lakes were full, we had 60 million acre feet of storage in that year. It has been a precipitous decline. And we've tried to catch up with it with planning documents, with allocations. We've always been at least one step, if not two or three, behind what Mother Nature was actually doing to us. But the reason is pretty clear. It's not raining as much and it's not snowing as much, number one. The last time we had this long and extended period of drought was over 1,000 years ago. Now, how do I know that? I wasn't there, but we have studied the tree rings. We do have some pretty sophisticated analyses of what happened. So 1,000 years, we call it the millennial drought, and it keep going. This was a pretty bad year, as you probably know. We had one good year back in 2023, and all the other 20s have been awful. But the second part of it is it's hotter. The forest is 2 to 3 degrees hotter than it used to be. And that means that it dries out. And you see it in the forest fires, but you also see it in the fact that when it does rain or it does snow, much more of that water is caught in the ground and it doesn't become runoff and it doesn't end up in Lake Powell, which is where we measure it. So it's a combination of things. We get a normal in the years, I would like to see a normal year. In the years when we have normal rainfall and snowpack, the runoff in Lake Powell can be 60, sometimes 50% of what it used to be. So big changes in the Rockies, major changes in our watershed. And you can see there the snowpack and the analysis for, this is a terrible slide and I apologize for it. What it shows on the right is what's happened to us under a tier 1 shortage. And as I'm sure you know, that's how we're operating right now under a program that we trying to catch up with a shortage on the river. We passed the drought contingency plan in 2019. We're operating under what they call the 2007 guidelines, which were passed surprisingly in 2007. And they were to try to analyze and to respond to shortages on the river. Obviously, what you referred to is the crisis now, which is the idea of the 2007 guidelines was they would last for 20 years. And the 20 years runs out at the end of 2026. So that's what we're up against. It's not new. It's not a big surprise. But the tier 1 shortage, which we're called for in the drought contingency plan, you can see right here, no excess water. That's the little blue dot up at the top. No agricultural water. That's the 500,000 acre feet that used to go to ag, some in Maricopa County, most in Pinal County. That's complete gone. That economy is shot, unfortunately. And then small municipal and tribal reductions. That's at a tier 1. And Mayor, you referred to a number that I'm not sure I know about, but we are thinking that in the long run, the tier one may look good to us in the rearview mirror.
Mhm.
And this shows you how it gets allocated. And I won't try to explain. That's supposed to be Lake Mead, that silly looking beaker. And what it does show is it's supposed to be full. So imagine that being full. That's when we actually got all the water we thought we were entitled to. Down here, you got the tier 0, tier 1, and tier 2. Tier 1 starts at 1078. It's the level above sea level of Lake Mead. And those are the triggers that they've been using for allocating what kind of savings have to happen in the rest of the basin. There it is. And what this really hardly shows is what we call the bathtub ring, which is if you look at Lake Mead today, I don't know if you've been there recently, but it really is sad because you see this huge lime deposit ring that goes down 30, 40 feet. It's now at 1/3 of capacity. And what we're worried about, and one of the other reasons why time is so critical, is that we're getting back. We were there in 2022, and now we're back at the point where they're worried about the infrastructure. They're worried about what happens to a generating plant when the head goes away. In other words, the water isn't high enough above the turbines to cause them to turn appropriately. There's something called cavitation that I remember from the Navy because it was a terrible thing when it was applied to a submarine's propeller. Cavitation also can blow up a power plant if it gets out of control. So those are some of the things we're worried about. Okay, this is a good story. This is what Arizona has done in the last 10 years. And basically, the purple on the right is what we did because we had to. That's the drought contingency plan that kicked in 2020. The rest of it is all voluntary savings. And some of it was compensated. Tribal savings was largely compensated, but that's water that Arizona put into Lake Mead that otherwise wouldn't have been there. And we've got a crisis today. I'm not minimizing that, but it would have been years ago if this hadn't happened. So I think we should pat ourselves on the back for having done an extraordinary job of holding off the crisis. Now, here's what's happening now, and I think I've gone through it, so I'll skip most of this. Right now, in the last administration, they started the environmental impact statement process so that they are getting ready to be able to put on the table a set of alternatives on managing the river. And those alternatives will be evaluated. The states will have a chance to weigh in on them, and the secretary eventually will pick one. He would prefer that it be one that all the states agree on. I think we all would. But right now, that doesn't look particularly good. The lower basin alternative, and the divisions right now are, as you know, I'm sure, California, Nevada, and Arizona are the lower basin. Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and New Mexico, kind of a funny quirk of geography, are the upper basin. I have a very hard time thinking New Mexico is higher than Arizona, but there it is. And that was decided in 1922, so that's what we're still living with. And maybe one of the things we have to do as we're dealing with this conundrum is blow up that distinction, because it really doesn't mean a great deal today, except for the fact that Colorado Compact that was signed in 1922 by all the states. Actually, I got to correct that. It was signed by all the states in 1922, except Arizona, who signed it in 1944. We were slow to the table, and we thought, and there were leaders politically in Arizona that were convinced that we should get it all, that the entire Colorado River should be diverted at Lee's Ferry and never get to California. That was the number one objective, and never get to Mexico. Obviously, that didn't swing the day, but it kept us from signing the compact for over 20 years. So bottom line is we've got a compact delivery, what we call the delivery obligation, which says that every 10 years, the upper basin has to release at least 75 million acre feet to the lower basin, 7.5 million per year. Excuse me, but it's on a 10-year running average. If I haven't spelled out enough crises, you've got the drought, you've got the 2020 guidelines, 2027 guidelines being drafted. You've got the environmental impact statement that's now being put together. The alternatives are being put together. we are within months of having the upper basin be in default on the delivery obligations. Now, a lot of that depends on, well, there pretty much isn't any more precipitation in the upper basin right now. And so we may have that crisis next year. What do we do? Do we sue them for delivery? Should we sue them for delivery? Will that blow up all the other discussions? And maybe it's worthwhile to blow up the other discussions. So what we're looking at right now is this convergence in next year of a whole lot of things involving the Colorado River and your supply of water from the Colorado River. So there are going to be at least 6 alternatives, as you know, on an EIS. There's a one no action alternative, and there are a number of others. The lower basin did a plan. We thought it was a very credible plan. And it basically said, we know we'll have to have less. So we immediately took 1.5 million acre feet off the top from our 7.5 and said, we're not going to claim that because we know that's evaporation and system loss. And we'll take that on the chin. But what we wanted was in times of acute distress, and our modeling shows that the 1.5 that we're taking voluntarily would take 80% of the years in the future. But there's still 20% that worries us a lot because those are ones where more cuts are going to be needed. And we asked the upper basin to step up and share with us the obligation in times in that 20% predicted lower years. And they absolutely have refused. They don't even want to talk about it. They say that, well, I'm not going to go in what they say because I don't have time. But the bottom line is we're getting nowhere. We've been in negotiations for 2 years. Arizona has been there. California has been there. Nevada. We've constantly put up other alternatives that might be workable. And the answer is always no. We're not going to go there. So let's talk a little about what we can do with a bad situation, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is a bad situation. And Mayor, you've referred to a few of these. Augmentation, maybe. There are supplies out there. They have a price, and so that may not be the preferred alternative. Negotiating is where we are now. That's not doing us all any favors. The administration, by the way, hasn't weighed in yet, and they will have eventually a big say in what's in those alternatives. And that could be a drive to get the states back to the table. Because if it's unfavorable, for example, to the upper basin, then they would have some reason. Up until now, they haven't felt there was any reason for them to come to the table because nobody in the federal government in either administration has said they're going to enforce the Colorado Compact. That's all we've asked them to do. Just say it's the law of the river. You're the river master. You should enforce the compact. We thought it was really simple, but nobody has actually issued those magic words. If they would, and the jury is out with the current administration, it would be a powerful incentive to negotiate at the upper basin level. Conservation, you're doing. Right now in Maricopa County, we're using per capita less water than we did in the 50s. That's amazing. That's a record and one we should be very proud of and be talking about. Reuse, we're beginning to do a lot more recycling. We're doing, I should make it, I think perhaps here in Cave Creek, you can ban the term toilet to tap. Somehow that's just not good publicity. But what we are talking about is getting the most out of every drop of water. And we're doing it. And we're taking some very strong and expensive efforts to do that. And recovery, of course, is what you referred to as the water bank. There's water underground, but we still don't have the infrastructure in place to get it back. That's going to be a big challenge in the next few years. Here are the mayors that have stepped up, including Mayor Morris, to be part of this Protecting Arizona's Lifeline. I feel like I've come full circle, having had the lifeline delivered to me in 1985 and now trying to protect it in 2025. But it's a great list. It's all the mayors of all the cities that get water from the Colorado River. So there are no non-participants. We're going to go next to the tribal communities, and I know they've already spoken very strongly in favor of a similar resolution. And then we're going to try, and the next step is the business community, who needs to wake up because their future is at stake here, just like all of ours. And one of the questions came up this morning in a discussion with 3 mayors on the the Business Journal had a regular, the Cap Times, I'm sorry, has a regular thing that they allow CAP occasionally to sponsor. And so we did it on this program. And I thought we wrestled with one of the problems that has really confounded people, which is how do you admit you've got a water problem? Because we know that there is media out there that would love to say Arizona or some parts of Arizona are running out of water. They do that whether we are or not. When 4% shortage over 100 years was declared in Western Maricopa County, the New York Times had front page story saying that Arizona had admitted that it didn't have water. Well, that's not what we admitted at all. And I challenge New York or anybody else to show us their 100-year plan because they don't have one. So we've done a good job. We need to celebrate that, and then we need to be together. This sort of goes through what I've just said. So it's a nice picture of the desert. We have been a water leader. I think we've got a lot good to say, and it makes me very angry that in this discussion, the upper basin say that, oh, Arizona's just wasting the water it gets. They're just a place of fountains. I'd like to shut off a certain fountain, but that's not in my purview. And golf courses. And they have, and not, Mayor, what you talked about in terms of the amazing conservation efforts that we have done in this state. I think we've got a proud story. We need to tell it. And frankly, we need to tell it to all our congressmen. They're all on our side. Every one of them we meet with every year, but they need to be more engaged. And frankly, I think the message of emergency that you gave at the beginning of this session is what they need to hear. So let's have everybody sign up for the Protect Arizona's Lifeline. You can do it online, not just cities, individuals can sign up. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. I think there might be a couple of questions from council. Catherine, I think you wanted.
I did.
Yes.
So Terry, is there anything more that we can do?
I should tell you something about CAP. I don't think so.
It was a good education, which got me to this table, and I appreciate it very much. That we could do to expedite any decision-making in Washington. I understand the videos. I know that they have an impact. I used to produce a lot of them, but we need to do some face-to-face communication too, I think. What would you say to that?
Yes. If you know anybody in Colorado, whatever they do, give them a call. Ask them to get to stop being the really negative influence. And the whole upper basin has been in lockstep because once somebody says, thank you, we're not going to, I'll take it with me. We're not going to negotiate a single drop of water, which is what they've taken. Becky Mitchell is the head of the Colorado negotiating team. That's what she said. No elected now wants to say, oh, we think we should be reasonable because it sounds like they're backing down. So Colorado's got to, I think, pay attention and come to the table. And the only way that's going to happen, I think, is if this administration sternly tells them, this is the way it is, and we're going to impose a solution which is not going to be to your liking. There are a number of things that they have opposed, which frankly, I think are nonsense. For instance, the Department of Interior has a number of small reservoirs in Colorado, mostly. They oppose having the water from those reservoirs be moved within the system to keep Lake Powell from cratering. I'm sorry, it's all part of our joint water resource. And yet that's a position that they've taken over and over again. It's hard. I'm inarticulate most of the time, but on this subject, I just can't say. So talk to anybody that you know of influence, any of the Council of the League of Cities, any of the groups that have other local elected officials. I think that's a powerful voice that ought to be spoken to. Be obnoxious, get in their face, talk about it, because we've not been, until Tom Brzezinski wrote that op-ed, Arizona, California, and Nevada have been the good guys. We've been trying to negotiate. We've gotten nowhere. So we've got very little time left, as your mayor said very convincingly.
One follow-up question on that. So the CAP retired general manager, Ted Cook, has been nominated to become the commissioner for the Bureau of Reclamation. We would all love to see him get that job, but it's on hold.
Let me be very clear. We would love to see Ted Gook as the head of the #1 responsible agency on the Colorado River because he is the most professional, as you know, in this area. I don't think Ted is going to be a benefit to Arizona, but he's not going to be a detriment. He'll know what he's doing. But I think they put a political hold on him. He was scheduled for confirmation early this month. It got mysteriously pulled. I don't know what's happening, but he would be a great voice to have because there are not many people right now at Interior who have the background that Ted has on water issues in the West and the Colorado River in particular. Unfortunately, I think other states, especially the Upper Basin, think that he would be an advocate for Arizona. You and I know that he wouldn't be. He would be an impartial judge as he was at CAP, but I'm afraid that's going to taint his nomination.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate
So
it.
you should push for Ted too, but
I'm
not because he
trying
would help
as much as
Arizona
I can.
because he's the best man for the job.
Yeah, absolutely. He's so well qualified. And frankly, we do hope he helps Arizona, but that's off the record.
Councilmember Friedman.
Terry, when you went over the history, wasn't it true that the governor of Arizona back in the 30s was going to call the Navy out on California?
Well, those options are still on the table. Yes. Was it Governor Moore? I think so.
Yes.
Mobilized what he called the Arizona Navy, and they Gussie Bush was the Secretary of State, if I remember correctly, or the Treasurer. I'm a little fuzzy about that, but they actually did have a small riverboat with a couple of highway patrolmen with guns. And they told the engineers on the California side that they couldn't go forward with Parker Dam. It was a lesson, I think, for all of us. The Arizona Navy had a very short tour, but frankly, I think we need to look at all of our options.
Thank you, Terry. And I appreciate you coming today. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Councilmember McGuire.
I'd like you to respond to the following that I think to me seems like double dipping, and that is that we're leaving water in Lake Mead that otherwise we would put into the ground. So it looks like we're using less water because we're leaving that water in Lake Mead, which then becomes available to California. If we didn't, that water would probably be in storage in Arizona.
It's a very good point. One of the reasons that the Upper Basin hates us, and I use that word advisedly, but I think accurately, is that we can do underground storage and they cannot. They have a granite subsoil that basically doesn't allow for the kind of percolation that we have done in Arizona very creatively. And there is an issue here. We shouldn't ignore it. Normally, when you farm or when you use water, there's a return flow. But when it goes on the CAP to Central Arizona, there's no return flow. And so you're absolutely right about if we target in Lake Mead and it isn't part of our intentionally created surplus, which we can do that too, then it's not our water anymore. It's part of the general conservation. And it could go to California or Mexico. Anybody downstream of us.
Well, I understand that water in Lake Mead is essentially owned. Some of that water is owned by particular states. Is that correct?
That is true. That's what we call
Yeah.
intentionally created
Right.
surplus.
So what we've
That's a
got,
different category.
right. So
For
what
instance,
we've got
all the
is-
512,000 acre feet that we have been forced to give up based upon the drought contingency plan, that's all for the general good. We didn't get paid for that and we don't have any claim on it. However, there is another 10 or 12 million acre feet that has our name on it.
What I'm concerned about is that we're making Lake Mead look higher by not putting the water in storage in Arizona.
We have, but that's prevented a crisis on Lake Mead. I mean, it is, there's nothing in the water world that if you push on one side, it doesn't pop up on the other. And that's another one of those examples. And you just have to be very careful that you understand where the pop-up is.
Mm.
There always is one.
Isn't it true that we're losing groundwater in that area at a record pace right now?
Which area?
The water table's diminishing
In which area?
up by Lake Mead. I thought I read some ASU scientists said that we're starting to lose that water table, starting to.
I
shrink
saw
up.
that article. I haven't read it yet, so I can't comment. I don't
Okay.
know.
Cynthia.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Goddard, thanks for being here. A question, how does CAP work cooperatively with SRP, other groundwater holders for the good of water in Arizona as a whole? Can you describe how that relationship is?
Well, bear in mind, we are sort of cousin agencies to Salt River Project. They would never accept that termination, but we're both reclamation agencies. We're both chartered by the federal government. They're a lot bigger than CAP because they have electricity and we don't. So we have a little bit of a chip on our shoulder, but the cooperation's been excellent. And of course, as you know, they are dealing only with Arizona surface water, and we are only Colorado River. So we don't intersect that way. There's something called SCAT, as you probably know, that is on the table for, and maybe I should close with this because I think it is part of the hope for the future. It would interconnect the two canal systems.
Mhm.
And that means, as often happens, if there's a surplus in the Salt River system, they could divert it into the CAP canal. Can't do that now. And what it does is, if you just think about those two systems as river systems, not as man-made artificial environments, and the fact that CAP goes uphill, and very few rivers do that, it really is an extraordinary delivery system between those two systems. It's thousands of miles of canal. And there's virtually no place in central Arizona that you couldn't reach or get very close to in one way or another through that system when it gets interchanged. So it's not only a chance to share water between the two systems, it is a delivery option. And one of the things that you saw in the chart a minute ago was augmentation. And if we can find other sources, then it's very possible to deliver them through the Central Arizona Project Canal. We got room, we got lots of room. And so there are the possibility of, whether it's desalination in the Gulf of Mexico, or I'm sorry, the Gulf of California, or it's some other kind of water resource that we're able to find through WIFA or one of the other agencies. That's another transportation opportunity that keep in the back of your mind, because it's an incredibly valuable public resource here in Arizona, that combination of canals. Sorry, I think, Mayor, I probably exhausted you and
No, you
council
haven't.
and my time. So I'm very grateful for the chance to be here. Thank you for your awareness and your advocacy and your leadership, and all members of the council on this critical issue.
Well, we have a lot of confidence in Central Arizona Project. I think they've been a wonderful agency for the state. Being a native myself, when I left for my career, the canal wasn't here, and we used to, growing up in West Phoenix, used to just let the water run in the yard to water all those green
It's you
lawns.
that did it.
It's me. Well, my father made me, but yeah, and mowed the lawn afterwards. But we have something for you if you can stay just a moment and come up here to the podium.
But a glass of water was enough.
Well, during my capacity as mayor, we've never done something like this, but Central Arizona Project has been so great. The staff has helped us so many times in our planning and all these efforts that we've got going on right now for what we're doing to take care of our little town. And in appreciation to your coming here tonight and the wonderful job CAP's done, we're going to present you with something I've never done before, and that is the key to the city town of Cave Creek. You got a big Next on the agenda is another presentation, and we have a whole crew from MAG here tonight. Ed Zucker's here. Welcome, Ed. We're really glad to see you here and understand there's some future here. Do we have something?
Yeah, Before Ed speaks, he's going to make some introductory remarks. Hal Marin, our Public Works Director, was going to just say a few introductory remarks and then have Mr. Zucker come up to the podium.
I want to thank Mag for coming today. This is in response to, if you remember back to October of 23, we gave Mag the money that we'd gotten from the state. We still do not know why we got the money from the state, but it was on the study for the widening of Cave Creek Road. One of the things we promised at the time was to bring it back to council as that study progressed. And that's what we're doing today. So I will let Mr. Zucker start the introduction. We have Tim Stroh, and we have their consultant from Baker Engineering.
Thank you, Hal.
Thank you.
Well, welcome, Ed.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Good to be here with you. Ed Zucker, Maricopa Association of Governments Executive Director. It's a hard act to follow, Mr. Goddard, and that subject. Well, we will try. MAG, as you know, Cave Creek is a proud member of the Maricopa Association of Governments. We are 32 cities, counties, and towns in the Maricopa and most of Pinal County, coming together to do planning and transportation, air quality, and human services. And so we're going to focus on the transportation part of that this evening. And thanks again to Mayor Morris and City Manager Miller for being such good attenders and participants in MAG. It's really important that we have all member agencies participate. And so we appreciate that, Mayor, very much. Cave Creek Road is actually a great example of how MAG can be effective. While most of it lies in the city of Phoenix, it is a regional serving roadway for Phoenix, Carefree, Cave Creek, Scottsdale, unincorporated Maricopa County. And so it's really an important facility for the entire Northeast Valley. And so doing that sort of planning is really in MAG's sweet spot. And you're going to see that this evening with our project manager, Tim Stroh, who I would say is one of the best project managers in the whole region. And so you're fortunate that we have him on this project. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tim to walk you through what we know right now in studying this area.
Thank you, Ed. Good evening, Mayor. Thank you for having me here today, and thank you, Council. As Hal stated, this project's funded by a state appropriation that we received last year. We kicked this study off, I believe, in the summertime. We anticipate wrapping it up by the end of this year, but it's very important for us to come to this council tonight to give you an update on the study. So my presentation will include walking you through the corridor on what we're seeing out there today from an existing traffic standpoint, also taking a look at 2030 and 2050. And then we'll get into the recommendations and some of the next steps. As Ed stated a second ago, the majority of this corridor is in the city of Phoenix. I believe about a quarter of a mile it is in the town of Cave Creek. Ed, I think, summed it up perfectly that we are, later on in this presentation, I'm going to be talking about another study that we're working on this part of the valley. But I think the timing is absolutely perfect for this effort. There's a significant amount of growth occurring south of Carefree Highway in the city of Phoenix. And I think this is a good time to, when we're conducting the study, take a look, start working with the developers, with state land, city of Phoenix, understand the impact and kind of what is coming so we can have a good plan for the future. The study area is about 9.7 miles long. The majority of the corridor, as you well know, I'm sure every single person in this room drives it daily. Most of it's 2 lanes right now in each direction. It is 3 lanes down by the Loop 101, and it kind of dies off around the Cap Canal. As part of this study, we did develop a stakeholder team to help lead and guide us on this. Hal was a member of that team. Very early on, we were made aware of the Cap water line that serves this town, which is located on the west side of Cave Creek Road. So we, as part of this study, we are making sure that any of our recommendations include an analysis of that and possible cost estimates if we have to relocate any part of that system. The study analyzed 14 signalized intersections for this corridor. We did not take a look at unsignalized intersections, but just mostly the 14 signalized intersections. We looked at it in the existing and 2030 conditions. One of the challenges on this road, even driving up here this evening from downtown Phoenix, the speed limit varies between 35 and 50 miles an hour. And so one of the things we're going to touch on later on in a few slides is safety along this corridor. There's been a significant number of accidents in the last 5 years. I think part of that is having a high-speed facility going through this corridor, lots of signalized intersections. There's other factors as well, but it's something to consider. So this is a map that shows the existing AM and PM both peak hour level of service. So when you think about level of service, think about like a report card you get in school, right? A is fantastic. There's little delay at the intersection. F is failing. You're sitting there possibly multiple cycles. So as you see on this map, the southbound direction is in the AM, the PM is in the northbound. This kind of resembles the commute patterns each day. Up towards the town, Carefree Highway, Cave Creek, you're starting to see E and F conditions, which probably is not a surprise to the residents in this room. And then down towards the south, you start to see Pinnacle Peak Road fail, that intersection and Deer Valley Road. In the 2030, which is right down the road, same thing. AM is southbound, PM is northbound. Carefree Highway is still failing. And this is in the no build condition. This is if we do nothing to the roadway today, it just stays the way it is. We start to add additional intersections that are in the failing list. Sonoran Desert Drive in the PM going northbound. Also, Rose Garden Lane also coming off the Loop 101 is starting to fail. By 2050, the trend continues. We start to fill in more and more red dots along the corridor. So when you think about the 2050 timeframe, think about all the state land that is out there today that's undeveloped. It starts to be developed, and we start to add more and more traffic to this corridor. This is still the no build condition where we're analyzing the road as you see it today. So when it comes to traffic volumes, so these are the volumes that are in between each intersection. We like to look at it and kind of do an analysis on that on our own as well. But the corridor, as you see the numbers on here, the highest volumes are around 50,000 vehicles per day when you first get off the Loop 101. And then as you go towards the town of Cave Creek, that number significantly drops to around 13,000 right before you get to Carefree Highway. Good news is the road is separated by a median, so we show the directional traffic, AM, PM, but total traffic volumes, like I said, it gets as high as 50,000 people on the south end. I'm not going to walk you through the 2030, 2050 segment analysis, but I did want to show you the existing AM and PM peak periods. So this is the AM in the morning. As you would expect, you start to see traffic building up, a little bit more congestion around Jomax heading towards the south. People are taking their kids to school. They're starting to go to work, get on the Loop 101 freeway. In the PM, it's the reverse order, but it's also mostly spread out northbound and southbound. Folks tend to do more trips, run more errands after they get off work, so you'll see traffic in both directions. But as you see, there are segments that are starting to fail, but overall it's not too bad. So safety analysis, as we discussed. So over 653 total collisions in a 5-year period. I know we call out the top 6 intersections that are the frequent violators, but as you can see, it's spread throughout the corridor from Carefree Highway down to the Loop 101. We also unfortunately have 8 fatalities in the corridor, all south of Dynamite Boulevard. Of the 653 collisions, 46% were rear-end collisions, 20% left turn, 12% side swipe in the same direction, and 10% single vehicle, and then there's other categories as it breaks down. We had 4 bicycle accidents and 5 pedestrian accidents. One of the things that I was surprised to see is that 75% of the accidents occurred during daylight hours. I wouldn't have expected that when I first started looking at this analysis that his team created. So one of the things that MAG does in any study that we do is safety is a priority for us. It's something that usually we can look into see what the root problem is at these intersections and make some improvements. So that's one of the things that we did for this study. We did low cost 2030 spot improvement recommendations for the study at every single intersection along this corridor to help with safety. Land ownership, we talked earlier about all the blue in this is undeveloped state land. That's going to generate a lot of traffic in the future, which we'll talk to here on this next slide. These are some of the developments in the corridor. One of the big one is the Azara project, which is also called Tatum East-West. That's number 15 on the map. That's that big square and you see right there in the middle. That project's gonna have two different phases. With the West project and East project, it's gonna it's gonna build, probably the number keeps not changing, but it's in the range, over 23,000 additional residences in that area. Over 6 million square feet of non-residential use. This is going to generate a lot of traffic on Cave Creek Road. That's why I said earlier, I know this was a state appropriation and the town of Cave Creek did not ask for this funding, but this has been a great opportunity for us to, from a regional perspective, to take a look at this corridor and say, wow, look what is coming. We need to develop a plan, right? When we were in about this phase of the study, the city of Phoenix and city of Scottsdale came to MAG and said, hey, we need to take a look at the area between Cave Creek Road and Pima Road in the city of Scottsdale, all the way down to the Cap Canal. So that large area. And I'm going to show a map later on about that. But there's going to be a lot of moving pieces in the future. This is not the last study that we're going to do for Cave Creek Road. Once we have a better idea of the timing of these developments and what the developers are going to be responsible for, then we're going to do some come back in here with the city of Phoenix, with the town, and make some additional recommendations. So as we stated, Hal has been great to work with on this study. Hal and Sean sat down with us and walked us through locating where the cap booster, the 3 booster pumps are located. They also showed us where the 39 air release valves are located along the corridor. We talked about future plans. We're going to get into 2030 recommendations in a second, and I just want you to say this right out front. We're not going to be impacting Cap 1. That's far enough off of Cave Creek Road. There'll be no impacts. I know that you guys have plans for Cap 2 to move it from below ground to above ground in the state land property. So that'd be fine, but we are proposing that we widen Cave Creek Road up to around where Cap 2 is in the near term. Cap 3, we're not recommending widening that section at all until the future, so it's not going to be an issue today. So 2030 recommendations. So we worked with the city of Phoenix and the town itself to come up with spot improvements to help with alleviating those intersections that are starting to fail today in 2030 and 2050. Those 3 different categories include roadway segments to be widened. So we'll be adding additional turn lanes, different signal phasing. We're also looking at signalized intersections. We talked about the widening piece. Well, actually, we didn't talk about the widening piece. So the roadway segments is where we're going to recommend widening Cave Creek Road to 3 lanes in each direction. And then the signal intersections where we're going to add additional turn lanes and signal phasing. And then operations and safety is where we can go in and make some low-cost improvements that will help keep people aware when they're approaching an intersection. If you're going 50 miles an hour, there's a signal coming up. Here's some things that can help address some of the potential impacts. Some of those recommendations also include offset left turn intersections. A lot of them right now, you're looking at each other head on. You can't see around the car in front of you that's also turning left. So you offset those just enough to where you can have a clear line of sight. There's also some sight distance issues along the corridor, I think, with vegetation up around signals that could probably be cleaned up to help with that. So like I said, we have 3 different categories that we made recommendations for. We broke the corridor into 3 different segments for the widening piece. As I stated earlier, we are proposing in the 2030 to widen. Rose Garden Lane's already at capacity for 6 lanes as far as being constructed, but it's going to go from Rose Garden Lane up to Cave Buttes Dam. That would be our suggestion. If we had funding for this study to make improvements in the next 5 years, we'd recommend widening 6 lanes. Segment 3, Cave Creek Road, Cave Buttes Dam to Carefree Highway. Like I said, it's operating at a fine level of service today, so we would not recommend widening at this time. As I stated earlier, we are making recommendations for all 14 signalized intersections, actually 15. But we wanted to kind of call out the top 3 intersections closest to the town for what we're recommending. At Carefree Highway, we're proposing dual left turn lanes in the southbound and eastbound directions. I'll be working with Kevin and their team to make sure that there's no additional right-of-way needed, that there's enough pavement just for a striping exercise. And then we'll also be making operations and safety improvements at Olson Road and Rancho Paloma Drive. So the 2020 vision for the corridor. So we sat down, we worked with the city of Phoenix. This is their existing arterial B cross section. This is what they have in their general plan today. They wanted to use this opportunity to update their cross section for the Cave Creek Road corridor to add more bike-friendly amenities since it's on the Sonoran Bikeway. So as part of this process, Michael Baker and their team created 2 different alternatives that we're going to be taking to the public. City of Phoenix wanted us to take this and get public feedback. Alternative 1 proposes a 10-foot shared use path and an 8-foot protected bike lane with a 4-foot buffer between traffic, which would include delineators or other type of buffer material. As you can see, it still holds the footprint of today, the 3 lanes, the median in the corridor. Alternative 2 would include a 14-foot shared use path and a 5.5-foot bike lane and 2.5-foot painted buffer. Both these alternatives would provide safer bikeway experience or opportunities for the public to create a little bit safer environment, keep them out of the street. Like I said, we're going to talk about public meeting in a second, but when we go out to the public, we are specifically going to ask them about the intersection improvements we're recommending in the short term and then this long-term vision for the corridor. So the next steps, we're close to wrapping this project up. We need to go back out to the public for an open house and then work with the town of Cave Creek and the city of Phoenix on wrapping up the final implementation plan and funding opportunity section, and then we'll complete the study. We are having a public meeting on October 14th at 5 o'clock at Paradise Valley Community Center. This is going to be a joint public meeting. So this is going to be the Cave Creek Road widening study and the Northeast Valley Transportation Study, which I'm going to discuss in the next slide. We had a lot of the same stakeholders for both studies that were going at the exact same time. So we thought it'd be the best use of the public's time and our time and everybody else's to bring everybody together in one spot. We have a large room. We're going to section off to have 2 different studies, and we'll be there to show the residents in the area the different recommendations. So this is the Northeast Valley Transportation Study planning area that we discussed earlier. So this was a request by, like I said, by the city of Phoenix, the city of Scottsdale, to take a look at all the growth that's going to happen by the undeveloped state land. Just looking at this map, going back to Ed's comments earlier, the lack of north-south options for this area in the future, right? Or what right now. So part of our work that we're doing is, and Kevin's a part of that team as well, is we're going to be working with City of Phoenix and Scottsdale and identifying what this network needs to be in the future when all the undeveloped land becomes developed on the state land section. Looking at different connections. And that's why there's some roads that will connect to Cave Creek Road in the future. And so we will have to revisit this once we wrap up this Northeast Valley Transportation Study. At the public meeting, this study just kicked off a few months ago. So we really want to hear what the public has to say about their experience traveling in this corridor. We have a lot of transportation experts, but I don't live in this area. So I would love to hear what the public has to say, get their feedback before we move on to our analysis. So like I said, really wanted to make this council aware of the public meeting coming up. Mayor Morris, that completes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from council? Mr. Wire?
Yes. One of the most awkward places on Cave Creek Road. Thank you. One of the most awkward, I'm not sure I want everyone to hear what I have to say. One of the most awkward places on Cave Creek Road is where you go from 3 lanes in each direction to 2 lanes in each direction going over the CAP Canal. I'm glad you're here, Mr. Goddard. Is a new bridge over the CAP Canal a part of the project?
So I believe, and Kevin can correct me if I'm wrong, but the expansion of that bridge is under design right now. So that is a work in process and with developers in the area and the city of Phoenix.
Thank you.
Looking to the right, looking to the left. Are there is there any commercial development along in the study area that you're aware of?
So as part of those big developments I was talking about, Mayor, there's going to be a lot of residential, but there will be a commercial as well. The Tatum East-West project, I believe, will include over 6 million square feet of non-residential use. So there will be commercial included in that.
Okay. So there'll be there, to summarize though, the major effect here will be the double left turn lane from Cave Creek Road onto Carefree Highway.
Yes, Mayor. So, we'll make safety improvements at all the intersections along the corridor, but at Carefree Highway and Cape Creek, we are proposing dual left turns in the eastbound direction and southbound direction.
Is that in the plan now? It's not one of these ones that's out in the future. This is in the.
That's our, if we had money right now, I would make that improvement tomorrow.
Okay.
So, and like I said, as part of the implementation plan that we're developing, we're going to put in different funding resources in there that the town could compete for with the city of Phoenix competitive programs. So,
Of course, one of the major bottlenecks up here is Carefree Highway east of Cave Creek Road, which is Scottsdale has a project that was on, and I understand it's now off for a while at least. Any thoughts on that?
so I know that is a MAG Prop 400 arterial life cycle program.
Oh.
That's what it's funded with. I'll have to check with the city of Scottsdale staff to see what the status is, but I would anticipate that moving forward, hopefully in the near future.
Okay.
I'll have to check with their team. I can circle back with town staff.
Any other questions from staff, from council?
That was my question.
That was your question. Okay, sorry. You down here. Thank you, Tim. Changes are headed this way. That's a lot of houses.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for having me here. tonight. I
It's
appreciate
good
that.
to see you. Ed, it's good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Pleasure, Mr. Governor. Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have a proclamation for Constitution Week, whereas September 17th, 2025 marks the 238th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America, designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, Robert Morris, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the town of Cave Creek, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals of the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. In witness thereof, I have hereto set my hand. Constitution Week starting 17th. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Number one is council approval of resolution number 2025-18, authorizing signers for the town's bank accounts and rescinding resolution number 2013-24, authorizing the mayor and town clerk as signers of the town of Cave Creek bank accounts. Number two is council approval of resolution number 2025-17, authorizing signers of the town's local government investment pool account and rescinding resolution number 2001-03, authorizing officers/agents of the town to deposit, transfer, and withdraw monies in the local government investment pool. Number three, council approval of the First Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement for audit services, recognizing the audit firm name change from CWDL, Certified Public Accountants, to Advisant Assurance, LLP. And number four, council discussion and possible approval of extension of the current intergovernmental agreement with Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, MCSO, for a period of 90 days. Does anyone in council have issues with any of these consent agenda items? Is there a motion then to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. General agenda items. The first is council discussion and possible appointment of Steve Lamar to the council-appointed ad hoc committee on open space. I put this on here myself because of information that came to light after the meeting where we appointed 16 members, and instead of the 17 members that we originally had, Councilmember Lamar has a number of unique qualifications that I thought the council that were not in evidence at the time we did this, and I thought it'd be good to have council consider those qualifications and consider appointing him to this committee. The committee has no power; it is an advisory committee only. Former council member and former vice mayor and current planning commissioner Steve Lamar negotiated with state lands extensively in the original time period back 2008 timeframe, trying to bring the 4,000 acres that's under study into the town at that time and trying to find funding. That effort was unsuccessful, and we're making another run at that contract by extending the agreement with the state lands and also raising the funds to buy that land over there. He was a key player in the Spur Cross acquisition. There are no significant issues that will come before the Planning Commission. That was one of the arguments that we had traditionally not wanted to have either Planning Commission members or council members on advisory committees because they have a chance to pass on these things during their regular meetings, but there are no actions that this committee will make that are coming before the Planning Commission. It is already zoned. All that land out there already has zoning in place. And so that is a reason, those are reasons that I wish to bring this back and have council consider it. So if someone has questions about his
I have a point of order. We voted for the 16 last time. Mr. Lamar's name was struck as a part of that. My understanding is based on 3 years ago when we were talking about Mr. Sova coming to the Planning Commission, I tried to revisit that. The next council was told no because we had voted on it already. So I'm trying to figure out in Robert's Rules of Orders where this allows us to do it.
Mayor, council member, I don't know, I don't recall the issue concerning Mr. Silva. I do know that Robert's Rules does have a rule that says if you have an item coming before the body, that during the course of that meeting, someone who voted for it can vote to reconsider it. Many people read that to mean that rule applies to future agenda items. If that were the case, you then would never be able to raise the issue in a following meeting. The open meeting law and your town code has provisions for putting things on the agenda. Robert's Rules doesn't apply to that. It would have applied had someone wanted to reconsider it at the last meeting. This is now a new agenda item, and as long as the procedure for putting it on the agenda has been followed, it's appropriate to act on it.
So I'm not understanding what the difference is.
I don't remember. I don't know what you're talking about, so I apologize.
So 3 years ago, we voted to put Mr. Sova on the Planning Commission. And I'm saying this, I have nothing against Steve Lamar. Ron's been doing a great job on the Planning Commission. But procedurally, I brought up the next meeting saying, hey, we'd like the motion to reconsider. And I was told, no, we can't do that. So I'm trying to figure out why the mayor can do this, but a council member can't do it.
I think your code allows him to put things on the agenda.
But if we'd already voted for it, how can you do that?
That doesn't, just the fact that you voted it at one meeting doesn't amend the code provisions concerning, that's the difference. Now, if you want to change how you put things on the agenda, you're welcome to. I'm just enforcing the current code, and the mayor has the power to put it on the agenda.
All I'm suggesting is there's a procedural foul here, and I don't like it.
I'd be happy,
So-
let's go through it. I think what may have happened 3 years ago is you were not applying Robert's rules for a subsequent agenda item, you're applying your current code. And as I recall, I think, I don't remember, I don't have your code in front of me. I think the mayor is the one who decides the agenda. Most jurisdictions say it's the mayor and the manager. I don't know what it is here.
It's a combination of.
Okay, yes, yeah. So that may have been why it didn't happen before.
I still think it's a procedural foul.
No, sir, it's not, but we can easily change the code.
Well, I'm not opposed to Mr. Lamar. I'm not opposed to, same thing with Ron Silver. He was voted on fair and square. What I am opposed to, though, is having two different ways of doing something.
And that's what I've been trying the two different ways are a function of the code versus Robert's rules. The code allows this to happen. It didn't allow it to happen 3 years ago. We can easily change the code if.
Well, but Robert's rules does allow you, if you voted for something, to come back and change your mind in the next subsequent meeting. That's according to Robert's rules.
That can't overrule. I think it is, normally it's during the course of the meeting or in the immediately succeeding meeting, not a meeting 2 weeks later.
Yeah, we meet every 2 weeks, so it would have been the next meeting.
Well,
So we either follow Robert's rules or we don't.
you follow your code, sir, and that's what we're doing tonight.
Okay.
Okay, any discussion of, any discussion?
Mayor?
Yes, Cynthia.
Thank you, Mayor Morris. I was the one who initiated consideration of removing Steve Lamar from appointment to the Open Space Task Force. And that was based on the precedence of what council had done a year ago with the Morningstar Trail Task Force, where current members of council and planning commission were not included on that task force. I have worked with Steve Lamar on the planning commission, and I have the utmost respect for his background, his history, and his talents. And in the spirit of cooperation, I can agree that, yes, he would be a good member of the Open Space Task Force and a valuable resource. I would like to see the council move forward with some more formal consideration of defining appointments to Citizen Task Force to address this issue, since it's been kind of handled both ways so far. I would also like to say that I think the Planning Commission has a role to play in our bigger discussion of open space acquisition. We have a lot of talent, a lot of history, a lot of brain trust on the commission. And I think by allowing them to have an agenda item that would include discussion of open space and strategies to complement the work of the Citizens Task Force, not to be redundant, but to complement the work and present another opportunity for open public meeting on the topic, could be useful and could generate some additional considerations for council to consider. Having made those points, again, I, in the spirit of cooperation, can support including Steve Lamar on the Citizens Task Force.
Discussion. Okay, Joe, you've asked to make the motion, so.
I'd like to make a motion that Steve Lamar be revoted on and we include him on the task force.
Second.
Okay, you have the motion, so your comments.
My comments are the following. It's a little redundant as to what she just said, but at the last council meeting, my eyes were opened up as far as what we were trying to do. I think that it was like a rush meeting, and I think there were some decisions made that were probably not well thought out. One thing I'm going to point out that's not written here was I don't believe there was a actual formal vote, whether or not it was more like, no, Steve Lamar, he can't be on it. They also said something about the two non-citizens that we were going for, and that was on the original game plan, if I'm not mistaken, Manager Grady, that we could have people who were not from town on that committee, and we kiboshed that without a vote either. So we didn't follow procedure accordingly. So I'm going to say that we need to create and ratify ground rules, as Cynthia was saying, for ad hoc committees in the future, from how many people can be on an ad hoc committee. It needs to be uniform as well. We need to be clear who can and cannot be on the committee, including voters in Cave Creek or non-town residents. As well, let me point out that the Open Space Ad Committee applicants, well, I just said that. So So basically, we need to do that. We need to have a meeting and we need to discuss it with, open meeting, but we need to figure out what we're going to do as far as ad hoc meetings. So we have some uniformity going forward. Now I'm going to say, Steve Lamar, if you were at the last meeting or you watched it, as you know, I stumped pretty hard for Steve Lamar. I felt like I was the only one up here doing it. My colleagues, for the most part, disagreed with me. Again, without some form of standards or rules, Steve was excluded. Let me point out a few things about Steve it's a little redundant, but Steve has lived in Cave Creek since prior to the incorporation in 1986. Steve has served on the town council, as the mayor said, as well as vice mayor. Steve is currently serving as a member of the planning commission. Steve was one of the main catalysts behind Spur Cross. He knows this game, and his expertise would be missed if not on this committee, which again was mentioned. I'm going to mention it again. The Morningstar Ad Committee was of a controversial nature to some degree, where it would have definitely been a conflict of interest to have people on the committee who are currently serving in the town with a direct involvement on the subject matters. So this ad hoc committee is not in that situation. Everybody who wants to be on this committee is in favor of the end result, which is to figure out how we're going to acquire the land. Plus, I do not believe this would cross over to the planning commission at any point, unlike the council. I urge my fellow colleagues to vote yes on Steve Lamar.
You had the second.
Yes, I had the second. I agree with the points that were made by Councilperson Friedman. Steve Lamar has shown a tremendous dedication to the county. I want to be careful in dealing as a town in worrying so much about precedent that we deny ourselves talent that we need. I also appreciate council for having clarified that this would be, in fact, a legal action.
Other council members, comments?
No, good.
Seeing none, we'll call a vote. All those in favor of Steve Lamar on the Ad hoc Open Space Committee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Steve Lamar is now on that committee.
And
Number 2 here is.
Mayor, if I may, I just
Yeah.
want to add to it. It appears that there might be consensus on coming back with some sort of procedural ways of doing appointments for ad hoc committees. So we're in the process right now of doing an update to our council rules of order. Rules of procedure. And so that's a perfect place for it. So we'll go ahead and work on that. And then also, I think we might have some interest in doing something like that as it relates to boards and commission appointments as well, since they're somewhat related but different. So we'll go ahead and bring that back to the council at a later date.
Sounds appropriate. Anything else, Grady?
No, that's all I have.
Number 2 on the agenda is council discussion and possible approval of the purchase of a new 2024 Bobcat T770 T4 compact track loader under state contract number CTR 062304 from Bingham Equipment Company for the purchase amount not to exceed $98,008.60. Hal Moran.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We have a Bobcat that sort of matches that description now. Luke said, well, why? It's brand new. And then I helped unwrap it. And we were pointed out that he's been here 17 years. And it's 17 years in equipment is a little long in the tooth. And we're facing every year having to put more and more money into it. Right now, if we don't do anything, we're going to put in over $8,000 in new tracks on it. So I'd like to get the new vehicle in, get this one traded off before we have to spend $8,000 to $10,000 on a repair. So we are using a state contract. It saves us 24% off of list price. Is what we're doing. And what I received after we put together the package is they'll give us $12,500 in trade-in, so that will lower down the price for the old one. And I'll answer any questions.
Hal, if I may, and Mayor, if I may jump in addition to what you just described, we're able to get a model that is not going to be subject to tariff. So we are getting a very good deal on this.
Correct. It's on the lot now. Any new ones will be subject to the tariffs that will come with the vehicle. But right now we have one on hold. We have this vehicle on hold, ready to go, if you say yes.
Where is this vehicle made?
I am not sure. I think it's probably assembled in Mexico. But Bobcat is a well-known and well-respected, and anyone who's been to our brush cleanups know how that Bobcat works to load, and we use it all. It's a very versatile vehicle, everything from post-hole drilling to a small backhoe to those grippers that will allow us to move things around. So it's something that we really do use every day and need.
Questions from council? Okay, would someone like to make a motion then? I will make it. Move to approve the purchase of the 2024 Bobcat T770 T4.
Second.
I have no discussion. I'm in favor.
Need a new one.
Other comments from council? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
On the general agenda items, number 3 is authorize a third amendment to the pre-annexation and development agreement between the town of Cave Creek and CSTE Holdings LLC for the Cahava Springs development.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Let's see how I get this going. Ryan, you starting it? A couple of quick slides. It wasn't that long ago that I was actually before you asking for the second amendment. But what we've been doing, and we came back in May to ask for the second amendment to give some time to work with the new property owner, Cahava Springs, to actually work on modifying the development agreement. But I want to start with a little bit of a background overall. Cahava Springs is the 230 lot subdivision in the town's northwest corner here. You can see sort of graphically shown here. So it's been in the town's radar since 2005 when it got annexed in. So it's actually predates as actually owning the water company when it came in. So it actually had a private water line extension agreement tied to that property. In about 2008, they started the improvements going up to the property. They started a portion of the offsite water line. Started on the roadway, but they didn't complete that. So in 2012, working with that developer, they extended the original development agreement out further. So they got more time to complete the offsite improvements necessary to the roadway and other infrastructure. So what we did, the property went into default and went to a sheriff's auction and actually was purchased by CTSE Holdings. They are now the trustees, and what they're trying to do is get the property prepared for sale. So they're not the eventual developers. It'll actually be sold off to someone else. So what the town is using this time with them, and we asked for in May, was the extension development agreement. We first asked for 6 months. And a lot of good progress has actually been made in that 6 months. The goal was to look at the original pre-annexation and development agreement, because again, this property, the original agreement was made before it was actually even part of the town, and combine all the agreements together. There's several different documents. As I indicated, the water service was actually done under a previous water company, private water company. So we're just trying to tie everything together. So we're looking for, with this action tonight, to extend the agreement out through November, give us another few months to wrap it up. We're actually really close to a final draft that we'll bring forward to councils to consider before it actually comes back for final ratification. Again, tying together all the multiple agreements that tie on to the Cahava Springs development would be a good thing for the town. And one thing that's actually happened actually just got completed last week, was one of the outstanding questions where you can see physically the roadway, the water line going up to the property, and the first 1.5 miles was constructed back in 2008 and has been sitting in the ground since that time frame. In 2017 and through 2018 and beginning of 2019, they continued that pipeline up to the property and then continued and did the on-site improvements for phase 1, Apache Wash, I believe it's called, or Apache Springs, phase 1 of the development. So all that pipeline has been sitting there since, some of it since 2008, some of it since 2019. So the condition of that was actually a big unknown. So the developer actually paid for it, actually have what's called a hydrostatic pressure test. They pressurized the line. We started at the bottom end and we worked our way up in segments and pressurized it and made sure it held pressure. Our fear was, is that pipeline has any of the gaskets dried out, and we actually have a bad pipeline. That has often occurred in the valley as developments have stalled out for a number of years, and it passed. So that's a good thing for us to find. When they go to redevelop this and do the offsite booster stations, we'll actually have to have them retest this line and then actually disinfect it. Right now, it's still not a potable line. It's disconnected from the town's distribution system. There's a jumper at Joy Ranch Road and 24th Street, but that has been completed, so it's a good step forward. And in addition to that, again, tonight's action is we're asking council to give us a few more months to wrap up the terms of the pre-annexation development agreement. I think it's actually going to be becoming now a restated development agreement to tie everything back together. So we hope to have that for council and probably a few weeks actually start preparing that to council so you can start seeing it in the not too distant future and then bring it back for final action. So with that, I can answer any questions.
Questions from council?
Sean, what would happen if we didn't extend it?
Right now, the development agreement would expire and then there's some, I don't know the specifics. Bill, do you remember specifically? Because actually,
It would lose the opportunity. This developer has finally shown progress in working with the community as opposed to the prior developer. I say the developer, it's an entity who's acquired the development and then sell it and looking for a developer. If you were not to extend, you would lose the opportunity for this development.
Bill, what is a sheriff's sale? Does that mean it went
That's
bankrupt?
like a trustee sale. It's like it was foreclosed and they
It was
wanted
foreclosed,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It's like a foreclosure as a trustee. Foreclosure is a mortgage. Trustee sale is a trust. It was a trustee sale, which means title was purchased by this financing entity who now has put it on the market. And we've seen just they've been so constructive as they've approached this deal, trying to make it work. That wasn't the case with the prior developer.
And Mayor, I think just to follow up on the Vice Mayor's question, there's been a number of residents that live in that area that do not have, potable water. And so this is really kind of like the king piece to make this happen. And the developer would be contributing quite a bit of the cost to make that happen. Of course, has sat for like 20 years and nothing has really gone on there. But if this were not to be approved, that would pretty much just the dreams of people that live out there that want to connect to that would just kind of evaporate.
Was there any plans to do an east-west connect?
I'll let the utilities director answer that.
No, not at this point. It's just a single point of access coming up
Could we
24
put that in the
26.
agreement? No east-west connect?
I believe it actually is in the draft that we put through.
Okay.
So because it only has a single point of access on the west side of the property.
But that's not an issue tonight. We're just extending the previous one. This is not there's another one coming after
Right.
this.
Yeah, I think the final plats don't show that, but I think it's actually a statement in the new development agreement draft.
All
that
right,
we filed
thank
out.
you.
Councilmember Friedman.
Anybody else coming to make a motion?
We're still questioning.
Okay.
We have still questions. Other questions from this side of the dais? I have one question. Are we requiring that they put in THM removal at the top end? Because at full rate, I think I calculated a number of years ago that takes 2 weeks for a gallon of water to get up to that tank up there. And if they're only putting one phase in, that first gallon of water for the first house is going to take a year to get up there.
Good point. I was actually trying to get back to the map that shows it is a long pipeline going up to the property itself. And yes, that is part of the discussion and it's part of the design. They've given us a revised booster or water master plan. They're actually showing 2 inline booster stations to get the water to the top of the hill. It'll go to a reservoir site. That reservoir site will have an aeration, a TTHM removal system, and effectively the ability to also rechlorinate. Once you strip the TTHMs out, you actually usually also strip some of the chlorine out, so we actually have to rechlorinate.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that has been factored into it. We do realize that, yeah, that is a long pipeline, about 180,000 gallons just sitting in that pipeline before it gets to the top of the hill. So we have factored that in.
Okay.
So
Other questions from council? Joe, you look like you want to make a motion.
I want to make a motion that we extend this, as you mentioned, to Cahava Ranch.
Second. Okay, Joe, you had the first comment.
So my comment is that 2 things here. When I ran, I walked to every house in there, and I believe there's 400 people that live over on that side of town, that side of our town, who don't have potable water. We owe it to them to do this. So I urge everybody to vote yes on this extension.
Yeah, I have no further comment. This is just an extension, so it's pretty straightforward. The next one, when the next one comes up, that's the real meat of this entire issue. Other comments, questions? Okay, let's have a vote. All those in favor of this extension signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next on the agenda is council discussion possible direction regarding increases to the hotel sales tax and the bed tax rates, and to proceed with statutory posting requirements and scheduling of a public hearing. Welcome, Sherry.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. So we've been looking at the TPT rates, transaction privilege tax, which is a lot of times referred to as sales tax here in Arizona, but technically we are not a sales tax state. We are a transaction privilege tax state, and there are some nuances in the distinction between that, but most people just think of it as sales tax. Our existing rates right now, so for the category for construction, our rate is 5%. Our bed tax rate is 4%, and then all of our other rates, whether it's retail, whether it's hotel, whether it's job printing, there's all sorts of different categories out there, are 3%. I have here for you what the range of what other municipalities have. Currently 91, we will be 92 municipalities sometime soon, apparently. Construction ranges anywhere from 1.5 to 5.5%. There's only one municipality right now that has a higher rate, and that is South Tucson. The bed tax category, so it ranges from 0 to 7%, and there are some municipalities that, when you look at the TPT rates, there's not a whole lot of consistency on how the different entities do it. They all have their own way of looking at things, but the ones that are at 0% mostly have significantly higher hotel tax, but not all of them. And then there are some that really don't have anything in the hotel tax category, and they rely on the bed tax category, and there's some that have both. As far as the bed tax category, there are 18 municipalities that have rates higher than our current 4%. And then the all other, which I was primarily looking at retail when I was looking at the other municipalities, ours is 3%, and the range is 1.5 to 5%. And there are 24 municipalities that have greater rates than we do. So in looking at the hotel tax and the bed tax, that's ARS section 9-500.06 is where all of this comes from. So first of all, I want to explain what a discriminatory tax is. So it defines that if there is a portion of the tax rate that exceeds the rate that is on other businesses, then that's considered a discriminatory tax on that category. Typically, you would use retail as that base rate because there's numerous categories of the different things, and some of the municipalities have different rates in many of those different categories. So typically retail that encompasses a whole lot as far as other businesses is the baseline. So for us, the baseline then looking at retail is the 3%. The maximum increase that is allowed on hospitality categories in any 1 year is based off of current CPI compared to the average for the last 5 years. So the current cap would be an 11% increase, and if council wanted to do an increase that big, but that wasn't what we were proposing. So we have plenty of room here. That increase on hospitality categories, there's more than just hotel and transient occupancy type lodging categories. It also includes restaurants, bars, liquor stores, grocery stores, convenience stores. And that's not what we're looking at doing with this. The categories for the hotel and the bed tax are by far and large going to be charged not to residents, but to visitors to the town. Maybe someone might stay for some staycation, but I don't know that that's necessarily very prevalent in the community. The restaurant, bar, grocery store, all of the rest of that, that does impact our residents. So anything that we would want to do in the hospitality industry in those categories would impact them as well. So the discriminatory portion, so that amount that exceeds the 3%, we are allowed to go 2% above in the hospitality category before restrictions start to be imposed. If we want to go higher than 2% higher than our retail rate, then for as the hospitality industries, it needs to be restricted to promotion of tourism. And the definition in the statutes related to promotion of tourism, direct expenditures to promote tourism, contracts with nonprofit organizations or associations. Some municipalities have their Chamber of Commerce be the Tourism Bureau. I think some of them are starting to move away from that type of model. And then also expenditures to develop, improve operated tourism related attractions, facilities, or assist in the planning and promotion. So that can be defined fairly broadly as far as what are those facilities, including even roadways have been identified as things that can be attributable as impacted by tourism. Within the Model City Tax Code, so definitions, we talk about a hotel tax, but they mean more broadly. They use the term and then they say, well, we also mean all these various transient occupancy categories. So they've got public and private hotels, inns, tourist homes, houses, motels, rooming houses, all these various things when it's a transient type situation. It does exclude, so you don't count as far as a hotel, foster homes, rest homes, sheltered care homes, nursing homes, or primary health care facilities. The transient does mean that it's a stay of less than 30 days. So when you hit the 30-day mark, then it's considered a longer term stay, and the right to have a residential rental tax for longer term stays was taken away and had expired last January 1. So looking at the increase, so for each increase in the hotel and bed tax categories, it equates to about $57,000 for each 1% increase. Right now, the hotel tax is at 3%, so we could go up to the 5%, increase it by 2%, and not have those restrictions of having to spend the money on the promotion of tourism. Bed tax is currently at 4%, so we can increase it 1% to that 5% amount. So the total 3% increase equates to about $171,000 based off of our current taxpayers. If we want to look at trying to gain more tourism in the town, which would be beneficial not only to us in our TPT revenues, but also to the businesses and their profitability. One of the things that if we were to gain any lodging, so here's a scenario of what this would look like. And so I just took just a generic look at things. And if we were to get lodging, or even for any other taxpayer, there are very strict rules, and Department of Revenue has gotten very, very strict on things about what we can and cannot talk about that are confidential, even if it's a taxpayer's name. If you're like, is this person paying tax? I cannot tell you. Does this person have a TPT license? I cannot tell you. It's gotten very strict. So my example here of just a generic, if we were to get lodging for, say, a hotel with 100 rooms, and so average occupancy kind of nationally and globally is around 69%. So that was what I had used. So over the course of the year, not every room is going to be filled every single day. This is looking at how many rooms would be filled and assuming over the course of the year, 69%. And using an average room rate of $150 a night, then that equates to hotel sales tax at the 5% and bed tax at the 5% of 189,000 approximately each, for a total TPT increase of 378,000. As I was saying, so if we wanted to look at going over the 5% and towards the dedication to tourism, or just simply trying to promote more tourism to be able to gain more revenue in our town, the Arizona Office of Tourism is a resource where we could get some funding to be able to help cover that. You do have to have the Destination Marketing Organization designation from them, the DMO, which basically involves the council doing a resolution identifying who the DMO is. That DMO has to be responsible for the tourism promotion marketing of our destination all year round. They would also have to have a dedicated tourism marketing budget that would be required. To get the DMO, there is no threshold on how much that budget is. For fiscal year 26, we set up a budget for 25,000. The Office of Tourism also administers the Prop 302 Maricopa County Marketing Grant Program. And in order to participate in that Prop 302 program, you have to have the DMO designation. The DMO must be in existence for at least a year prior to the grant funding year. And then for fiscal year 26, for example, it's been the 123,000 that you would have to have as a dedicated tourism marketing budget in order to qualify for the Prop 302 program. It's been that amount for at least a couple of years, so maybe it'll be the same amount next year. Maybe they'll decide to increase it. I don't know. So this is one of the things that some of that additional revenue could help fund to get us to that point to where we can gain more resources for a tourism program. The other thing too to look at is the bed tax goes and the hotel tax goes into the general fund. There's a lot of demands on general fund resources. So another thing to look at of the additional revenues that come in, we have continuing inflationary factors impacting our costs. There's some significant program costs that we've had that have been added over the last few years. For fiscal year 26, the ongoing portion of the fire budget is 4.7 million. And with the inflationary factors, that will continue to increase. The streets fund support. So we, for fiscal year 26, we moved all streets activity into the streets fund, knowing that HERF money would not cover all those costs, but in order to be able to demonstrate what the total amount is and be able to utilize all of those HERF dollars. So general fund in fiscal year 26 is budgeted to support the fund 2.4 million. I know that there's been a lot of catch-up work being done on the streets maintenance and rehab, but costs do continue to go up on those. So we'll still probably have a hefty amount that we'll be having to subsidize from the general fund. The other thing too that is a demand on general fund resources is the support of the utility funds. In the fiscal year 26 budget, we budgeted 2.9 million to subsidize the wastewater fund, 1.2 million to subsidize Cave Creek water, and a budgeted cash loan for Desert Hills water of about $500,000. So these are all things that additional revenue could help to sustain. The bed tax. So if we do go to 5%, here is a list of the other municipalities with bed tax at 5% or greater. You have places that are tourism type places like Bisbee on the list. You have Scottsdale, you got Tempe, and those are all on the left-hand side of 5%. The right-hand side of those are going up a little bit further on what those numbers are. You have like Williams at 5.5%, Marana and Oro Valley at 6%, and Colorado City at 7%.
Sherry,
Yes.
do we know what Carefree is? I'm wondering what their Hampton Inn bed tax is.
I want to say,
3%. I just looked.
I want to say it's 3%.
Oh.
Yeah. Actually, I had that on one of. Yes, 3%.
Thank you.
So we have how many rooms at Rancho Mañana? None?
I mean, isn't it there's not a hotel there, I don't think, is there?
It's a resort.
Yeah.
How many rooms are there at Rancho Mañana and I know there's 30 rooms or 29 rooms at the new Focus on the Family facility? Correct?
I don't have that information.
Is that
Luke?
correct, Luke?
18.
Focus on the family.
18.
Yeah.
18, I think.
Offhand, I don't know. I thought it was much lower. I thought it was only 18 rooms at the Focus on the
Okay,
Family,
so
but
you
I
have
can
18
verify.
there, and how many do we have at Rancho Mañana?
Rancho Mañana, I haven't a clue.
So Rancho Mañana is a little bit,
So 38 and 18, right? So we'd have to get other hotels to get up to this 100 number.
There's 7 rooms. It's Stumbleina's, the
Tumble,
Prickly
yeah.
Pear. Then there are also some other developments that are still preliminary in the work that would add to that.
I was just going to say Rancho Mañana is kind of a combination. It's vacation ownership,
Right.
which is like timeshare. And what happens is you're probably aware that those units that don't get used get thrown into the hotel inventory. And
Right.
so I don't know what that split is and how that works, but to your point, we definitely get bed tax off of them.
Okay.
Yeah. And I went back. So this is the slide that is based off of what our current taxpayers are. This slide here was a scenario if we were to get new lodging of how much it would add to our revenue.
Didn't we lose some tax revenue from when they took away the rental tax? I mean,
The long-term
Yeah.
rentals with
yeah,
the,
so we lost some lodging tax.
We did.
A
Long-term
year ago,
rental.
I think was when it wasn't a great amount, but it's kind of in the same neighborhood as these.
It's making up for what we lost.
Mhm.
And so we did lose some, but some of the towns were dramatically hurt
Correct.
by that. They have a lot of apartments.
Particularly Tempe.
Mhm.
Are the bed and breakfasts also taxed the same way for the bed tax, like Spur Cross?
A bed and breakfast would be considered lodging in that hotel definition, yes.
Short-term rentals
What
as well.
what about the short-term rentals? Are they?
Yes, so a house
Mhm.
is on that list of that you could do lodging at a house.
So this would be subject to this increase you're talking about?
Correct.
Yes.
Mayor, question.
Go ahead.
Sherry, on defining hotel sales tax, does that include items sold in the hotel? Food, liquor, gift shop? No, so it
No,
it
those
just
are different.
strictly is the lodging.
Those are different categories. So they
Okay.
would pay, if it was a hotel that had like multiple things going on, there would be like the hotel tax on the rooms. There would be retail tax for the gift
Right.
shop. There
Mhm.
would be restaurant tax on the restaurant, like all of that.
Okay, so it's
Is-
still split out separately.
Yes. Okay.
Other questions?
I wasn't quite done with my presentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the municipalities with the hotel sales tax at 5% or greater is a much shorter list. It's kind of a new thing that people have started realizing, oh, I've got my bed tax at a higher rate. And so there's a trend of municipalities that are starting to go, oh, I should also increase my hotel tax. So a lot of them haven't gotten there yet. But on this list, so Page is one that set both the hotel and the bed tax at the same rate. So did Williams and so did Colorado City. So the timeline, if you were to agree that we should increase these tax rates. So we would be looking at doing a posting of a preliminary notice, and the written report would have to be posted on our website no later than September 19th to get to our effective date of February 1. The formal notice of intent. So typically you do like a preliminary notice, and just in case something changes, then you can do like your formal notice of intent would have to be no later than October 28th. We would do a first reading of the ordinance on November 4th. The public hearing and second reading of the ordinance would be November 18th, and that gets us an effective date of February 1. And you're probably saying, well, aren't ordinances effective 30 days later? And it's because of the Department of Revenue ADOR's timing. They require 60 days to be able to implement a new change in a tax rate. So we'd have to have it not be effective until February 1. And that is all that I have. Oh, wait, I have one more slide. This goes towards strategic plan with the fiscal sustainability. Goal number 6 is about enhancing and protecting existing revenue sources and adapting to changing economic conditions. So that's all I have.
Any questions? We've been asking this to go along, but any more questions?
I have one. Have we heard any feedback from any local hotels?
About this agenda item?
Yes.
No.
Is staff making a recommendation?
Yes, we were recommending increasing both the hotel and the bed tax to the 5%, which gives us the unrestricted, not having to dedicate any portion of it to promotion of tourism.
When you move to the next level of the promotion, you have to have you have to spend $128,000. Is that the number? Is that correct? Is that you have to start spending money, and so you don't really make any net. You're putting that right back into tourism.
Right, but hopefully the promotion of tourism brings more revenue because you're creating more tourists coming to town.
But the tourists, generally the towns that do that have hotels to stay in, correct? I mean, Scottsdale, for example.
Yes, typically, yes, they would have hotels in town that would help with that. But we're also driving distance from other locations. And so even if it's bringing people up here for some of the special events that happen, which, you know, we definitely do get tourism from that. But if it was promoted to help encourage even more, then hopefully they would be spending their dollars on retail items in the restaurants and the bars as well.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may too, just to dovetail on your point. So in addition to if eventually we were to become a destination marketing organization, or we collaborated with one, in addition to the Arizona Office of Tourism grants, a number of the tribal communities also have grants that a number of cities and towns apply for and use to promote and use for tourism. Where I came from previously, we were able to get grants from Fort McDowell and also Salt River Pima Indian community. And you don't, for those are Prop 202 monies, and you don't have to be adjacent to those tribal communities to apply for grants. So we had a significant amount of our tourism budget funded not only from Arizona Office of Tourism, but also from the tribal communities. And we did cross-marketing promotion with those tribal communities. So we were promoting their types of activities. The only reason I'm bringing that up is typically with Arizona Office of Tourism, it's a match. So you have to match the dollars that you would get from them. But the tribal communities does not involve match. They're just true grants and aid.
And we've gotten some money from them. I forget what it was for, but we've taken advantage of that a few years ago. I've forgotten what the program is. Okay, yeah.
It's not really a question, or can we have discussion, or?
We should have a motion before we do discussion, but you want to make the motion?
Yes, sir. I think on this one I will. Properly, any help is welcome. I move that the bed tax rate in Cave Creek be increased based on the staff recommendation from 3% to 5%. If I'm understanding that correctly.
So the motion is about directing staff to follow the posting requirement. Because it won't be until we go through that
Right.
process
Begin
before
the
we'd actually do the
process.
increase.
Public notification and so forth.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, I think Cynthia was first on the second.
I was chatting with David Phelps earlier today and I had forgotten, but after incorporation, in the very early 90s, we were at 9%. Because we had so little sources of income back in those days, and the tumbleweed in was an economic bedrock in the community. But we were actually at 9%, and we felt that was reasonable, being new and probably uninformed, because anybody who had traveled to the eastern states, Boston, New York, 13, 11%, 15%, and so forth. So I don't know that we had staff in those days to do the research to justify the 9%. But it was a number that was operational for a number, and I don't know when it changed. And I don't know how it got.
Means the funding have to go back to tourism.
Yeah, and I mean, and I think
Might have the high tax rate if you better.
well, I made the motion, but I'd like to just say one more comment if I can, and you have a second, I guess.
Sure.
And this is just my ceaseless lobbying, which I will admit up front. I'm not crazy about restricting the staff on how much money they can gather, especially when you go through your laundry list of what the money could be used for. And creating more bureaucracy or whatever infrastructure for tourism may be defensible. But I just would hope that as this proceeds forward, there would be a discussion about some of that money being earmarked for the historic commercial corridor. Because if you're promoting tourism, it's going to take more than a transformer to get people to come up here and look for the Old West. And if we just had some future discussion on this and some future earmarking of either projects or discussion or some type of living room improvement in the commercial historic corridor, whether it's new trees, whatever, but before you embrace the automatic return of the investment into tourism, it just would be nice if we could do something, even if it's incremental, to establish a policy for funding whatever the staff recommends in the historic core, whether it's parking or anything. I mean, there's so many things that need to be done, but you get a lot of criticism sometimes from people in the community about the appearance of downtown Cave Creek. And I'm kind of like not aware of it. And these comments are made and I'm kind of like, well, what happened that made people feel less proud of the down? It's always supposed to have been kind of eclectic and rough and tumble and so forth. So what is it? We're not trying to be Scottsdale. So I don't know what people are looking for that we're not providing. But if you go back to the document, which was redone by staff recently, we should take a look at what can be done to either be more hospitable to the visitors or attract something that looks thematically like we lost the horse tiles years ago in the watering troughs. So not to have an affectation, but I just think there should be a public hearing or discussion on it if this is going forward, that some of that money might be earmarked for staff recommendations. That's the only thing I had to offer.
Cynthia, you had second.
Yes, I can support the increase in the bed tax and hotel sales tax. I think it's a reasonable increase and it's not necessarily bad to be in the top 30% of cities and towns in Arizona. I do find it curious, though, that we don't have reasonable statistics on the volume, what our numbers are in terms of how many hotel rooms, how many short-term rentals. I mean, we have some statistics on our businesses based on business licenses. So I think even though it's a fluid number and it's changing and always dropping up and building up, we should have a more reliable number to base projections on.
If I may, council member, and I'm sorry, I know Sherry was going to jump in and respond. So the TPT tax that is remitted to the state, we get these reports and Sherry was able to model based on the numbers that we receive, and we can't share, like who pays what and all that. But she was able to basically model what a 1%, what a 2% for both hotel and bed tax would be, or TPT. So in a way, she did it on an analytical level without having that. And she was showing you potentially what it could be if we had a 100-room hotel come in. So I would just want to just clarify that it was done, but not in a granular way or organic way where we went down to identify the number of rooms we have and what's the occupancy and so forth. But based on the numbers that you see tonight, those were real numbers based on actual revenues and projections that we would expect to get.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments?
I want to say that I support what Councilman Augerton said. I think that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, I think that if we're going to promote tourism, we have to have something for people to come see. And we have a Western and mining heritage. So we need to get some people, maybe this is another citizens group that can come together and get 5 to 7 members and, just have them throw out some ideas, work with the Tourism Bureau about, things we can do on the public right of way. That would, provide a little bit more Western and mining flair because that's what the town was, historically from.
And I'm reacting to what Councilperson Algerton was saying. I think there is both a desire to be eclectic as well as a desire to bring our heritage or our feel of the downtown under control to become what some people would call Western. I want to point out that Mr. Kautzman and his amazing staff are people who are able to work with the developers and to influence the developers. If people want to see us have more of a look of the West, working with our development people is a very good way to do it. I want to be very careful about anything like architectural standards. People in the community don't want that. But we do have the option of working with our developmental group.
Okay, so I have no comment. So we're ready for a vote. All those in favor of moving to 5% as the motion says, or starting the process of
Yes.
noticing and hearings, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
We take a bio break.
Yes, let's take a 10-minute break, reconvene at 20 minutes after 7.
Yeah.
No, I get it.
Well, at least we started early, right?
No, that's.
Compared to what we used to be.
We're still going long. I think we're talking.
session. And the next thing on the agenda is the council discussion and possible approval of resolution 2025-16. A resolution extending the annexation and zoning development agreements with the Arizona State Land Department for Apache Wash, Rogers Wash, Willow Springs, and core site areas for an additional 10 years past the original date of expiration.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I have to apologize for being a little underdressed for the occasion tonight. I don't have a fancy PowerPoint to show you subject to this matter. I just have some talking points. This is, as you all know and are familiar, this is a long time coming. Really in earnest about 2 years ago, the town started conversations with the state land department about the future disposition of their state trust land holdings within the town of Cave Creek. It was at that time that they were open to, continuing the discussion of different options that the town could, whether through a special land use permit, take over the management of the open space, all the way up to acquiring in fee by purchase, and every option in between were explored and discussed. I want to acknowledge and thank legal counsel Bill Sims on working with the State Land Department's lead counsel in crafting these agreements that would extend the current agreements 10 years from the current date of expiration. As you're aware, the current 20-year agreements that were consummated in 2009 are set to expire in 2029. Should council approve this resolution this evening, those 4 agreements, once the land commissioner signs off, would be extended to June 18th of 2039. One thing that is new to this equation was the state land department was really looking for Cave Creek to put money where their mouth is, or skin in the game. So one component of the agreement is the state really wanted to see the town kind of pony up in earnest and say, over the next 5 years, the town would have to initiate the auction of 160 acres of the open space. Now, they're not going to tell us which open space to pursue. They're going to leave that up to us. But once again, from a timing standpoint, we've got multiple ships really set out to sea on this issue. And there's different ways to take this down. And obviously you've appointed an ad hoc committee to look at that in more detail and come back with recommendations to council, whether that's acquiring it all at once, phasing it over time. The state has said that they would work with us to do that. All sorts of different options to achieve the end goal of acquisition of the 4,000 acres. So like I've said, the town commissioned an opinion of value, AKA appraisal, for the 4,000 acres of open space last year. That study is now a year old. It's stale by any market. So that's something that we would have to look at, probably refreshing in 2026 as we move forward with this ad hoc group, working with the town council, getting information out to residents on the different ways to do this. Again, the areas are Apache Wash, Rogers Wash, Willow Springs, and the core site. And with that, staff recommends approval of resolution 2025-16, extending the agreements with the Arizona State Land Department. And Mr. Sims will answer any questions that council may have.
I have a question. Is to execute the 160 acres?
Turn your mic on.
Ballpark number. Give us a ballpark estimate for what the 160 acres might cost, so we know what the worst case is.
I could tell you it would not exceed the 50% cost that the town ponied up to split the 30 acres with Maricopa County a few years ago. I think our proportionate share was about 318,000. I would say that if you want a ballpark, that's probably within the same league.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
Just a quick comment, Mr. Mayor. Luke, in your testimony you just gave, I just wanted to say one thing that, or comment on one thing. In the town of Cave Creek, the town is kind of the stakeholder for hopefully the success of this effort. And we do have the historical precedences for across But with the 4,005 acres, it does have some stakeholders as well. Different parts of the town, different parts of the town that have adjacent residential, different parts of the town that have view corridors or, and there are other stakeholders of interest in the community. I'm just reminding people that, or suggesting to the council that it would be probably not in the town's best interest to try to do this piecemeal over time, that the 4,005 acres, again, in a world where people paid $1 million for a dog washing acre of land and a McDonald's, 18 million for unprecedented spectacular canyons and mountain vistas, it just seems that it's almost like it's too good to be true. I mean, it's not just economically, but timing wise. And it's literally twice of the effort that was done with Spur Cross Ranch, which we still valley to. This dwarfs Spur Cross Ranch. So I just would offer caution respectfully that, because I've been trying to figure out what the 160 acres was about. I do understand it's a kind of a contract addendum to what the state land department wants in the town. But I hope we don't, or I hope the committee doesn't explore it too far, trying to jigsaw puzzle this as more desirable areas or more clients for this area, more stakeholders for that and so forth. The timing is so critical, I think, with the gubernatorial election coming up next year and everything happening with the state legislature and feds, the reserve rates and everything else, that if we're going to do this, the primary stakeholder is the town. And even though we may have 10 years to where you may have support with future councils and you may have financial availability, I think the elephant in the room is not the money. I think it's the timing. So, that's just my 2 cents, and I offer it for whatever it's worth. But I mean, we would certainly benefit from 160 acres because we would be lucky to get that. We haven't had that opportunity. But with this literally in the wind, I think the major benefit tonight, and I'll get off this, I'm sorry, I want to rant here, or slow walking rant, is that I think it gives the staff something they haven't had before, which is a public commitment by a council vote that the town is serious about the acquisition of the 4,005 acres. And in fact, has agreed with what the staff has brought that back, which is a precondition in order to continue to have more time to perform, that we're serious enough to commit to the cost in the future of the 160 acres. So I think we strengthen the hand of Luke and the manager as far as how to represent accurately the position of the town of Cape Creek. And hopefully this committee will do that as well. They'll come up with, further justifications. So.
We're in the question period here. Any
Okay, I was
questions
gonna
on
just back him up and just say that, yeah, we need to go for it if we can. I mean, if it comes down to a piecemeal or whatever, so be it, but I think we have no choice. I think we have to get this extension.
Okay, then let's make a motion. Who
I'll
wants-
make it. I move that we approve resolution 2025-16, extending the Apache Wash, Rogers Wash, Willow Springs, and Core Site agreements with the Arizona State Land Department.
Second.
Okay, you had the comments?
No, I mean, we need to do this. We need the extension, but I think more importantly, we need to make sure our citizens buy into everything that we're doing. And I think this is one of those no-brainers. There's a lot of land there that we could do a lot of different things with, particularly the area near the rodeo grounds, where we could put, a couple ball fields, because we don't have anything like that right now. We could put up more towards Spur Cross. We could put in a couple of picnic pavilions and things like that, because we don't have anything like that right now. So I think there's a lot of beneficial uses, and I think that we ought to take a look at this with that committee at the same time we're doing this. So I think this is a good thing, and I think it's necessary. Go ahead.
Oh,
Joe?
I think that we need to do this. I hope it doesn't take another 10 years because I might not be alive, but when it comes, and none of us, but at the end of the day, I think we just need to acquire it and we'll figure out, that's phase one. We'll figure out how to manage it and what we're going to do with it at a later time or future councils.
Other comments? Seeing none, all those in
Mr.
favor?
Mayor, if I just,
Yes,
like,
yes.
one, Luke was adamant in negotiations to buy you time to find the funds to acquire the additional acreage. And 160 is just a minimum. You now have the 10 years to find more funds. Luke was also adamant in insisting on preserving your rights. And the initial draft is, as Luke described, you telling them which 160 acres you will select. And right now it says you can apply for the 160 acres, but they preserve the truster's discretion. And eventually the land commissioner will decide which 160 you get.
It's interesting.
Okay, anything else? Any other one? Okay, all those in favor of this extension signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Number 6 is council discussion, possible approval and acceptance of a grant of right-of-way from the Bureau of Land Management for an existing trail at no fee. And my question is, why is this on the consent agenda?
Mayor, members of council, it's my understanding that trail easements, trail dedications are no longer up here on the consent agenda. They're placed on the general agenda.
This is my fault because the very first council meeting I had was the Morning Star matter. And I said, and that meeting, believe it or not, went to about 11 o'clock at night. And I said, we will never put these on consent because we got beat up. So that is the Miller dictum going forward. I apologize, but that's why.
Take you off the hook.
Can we make a motion to strike that off the agenda right now?
Mayor, members of council, once again, just a brief presentation on this matter. This is a trail we've long been chasing. It is located just northeast of the town's wastewater treatment facility along Carefree Highway. It crosses a 40-acre piece of BLM land that's also encumbered by Cave Creek Wash. The trail actually there's an existing trail it's a Wildcat Trail, meanders along the Cave Creek Wash. Accepting this would allow us to manage it and police it as a non-motorized public trail. The BLM is also, as part of this agreement, because we are a governing body, they are not charging us a fee. Typically, if they transfer these, they do it for a relative cost. So we started the acquisition of this back in 2015. It's working with BLM as I've grown more familiar with the length in time. That's why a 10-year extension on an acquisition thing is a smoking deal, because that to them is a second. So at any rate, this trail in particular provides great connectivity and flexibility for access into Cave Creek Regional Park from the neighborhoods to the south and east. It's also in our general plan, Trails Framework Plan. It's a critical piece of dirt that we've been trying to get BLM to sign off on for more than a decade. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Questions?
Luke, my apologies. When I saw it said a trail, I was like, what trail? But when he spoke a minute ago, Grady, I thought he was talking about Morning Star. That's why I said to strike it. But now you make a significant point, and I didn't know what you were talking about before. I'll definitely vote in favor of this.
Mr. Aguirre, you want to make the motion?
Yes, this is number 6, correct?
Yes, 6.
Okay. I move for approval and acceptance of a gift of the right-of-way from the Bureau of the Land Management and of an existing trail at no fee.
Second.
Okay, Cynthia, you had the second. You have the comment.
I've walked it. And I suspect I'm not the only person here who has done so. I didn't realize that it wasn't already a town trail. So thank you. There are also some archaeological sites over there. So hopefully those will be protected. But yeah, this is a needed trail. I didn't even know it wasn't one of our trails.
Cynthia.
Just to support ongoing trail development throughout the town. And this is an important piece.
Other comments?
Is there a name for this trail?
No, the naming contest has not opened yet.
Well, I think we should name it the Luke Trail.
Oh,
People are getting giddy tonight.
yeah, we are.
At this late.
Yeah, what time is it?
Okay, any last comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We're on to presentation of Development Services Department report.
Home stretch, Mayor and Council.
And what's the last words?
So, thank you, Mayor and Council, for letting me give you a kind of an overview of what the department's been working on. Obviously, an agenda item just a few moments ago, the ASLD open space. You're all fully aware, council appointed an ad hoc committee to examine the open space and make recommendations to the town council. Tonight, you appointed another member to that committee for a total of 17. As the town manager stated earlier, our kickoff meeting for that group is set for next Wednesday at 2 p.m. In the council chambers. Next slide. At the rodeo grounds, a lot of things going on. I don't know if anyone has been out there the last 2 weeks or month and a half, but we have expanded the parking area. Parking capacity is as illustrated up there in the green kind of highlighted area. That equates to approximately 4.5 acres of parking, and that's been through a partnership between the town's facilities department and public works department, getting that all cleared out. We did have to go to a native plant specialist to relocate several saguaros, ocotillos, and other cactus protected by our ordinance. That will be a huge, it essentially it doubles the parking area on that south lot. So it'll be a huge improvement, a market improvement for the different events we have. Speaking of that, the Turquoise Circuit Finals, as council is aware as well, is coming to town October 31st, which is a Friday, and then 2 performances held Saturday, November 1st. They'll do a matinee and an evening performance of that. And I've been working directly with the Cave Creek Rodeo Days board. I was appointed as a ex officio member to that board. I've been attending their board meetings and also attending all of the Turquoise Circuit meetings leading up and ramping up for that event, which should be a great thing for the town. The other thing that you see on that slide is another structure, and you're probably saying, didn't we just build that? That is actually a smaller version of the skybox that's located above the rough stock end on the north side of the arena. This is a smaller, it's approximately about half the size of the main skybox that was finished earlier this year. That'll go over the timed event end on the south end of the arena. And that is actually being funded by a private donor, working with a contractor to get that built. We approved, yes, yeah. In the future, once they go vertical, I have invited her to come and address the council. She's a longtime member of the community and a longtime volunteer of Cave Creek Rodeo Days and the mission and just that facility. So couldn't be more thrilled to have, our private partnerships helping us out, bring that facility along. The grounds also hosted our first event, getting back into the high season of rodeo grounds rentals this past weekend. I'm happy to report that the grounds is rented out every weekend from now until the end of the year, except for Thanksgiving weekend and the week before Christmas. And then that momentum carries all the way forward through May. As you're aware, during fire season, we partner with Foothills 911 to go in and set up temporary panels should, heaven forbid, there be an emergency requiring the evacuation of large ranch animals. The rodeo grounds is always ready to help our neighbors in the North Valley with that. That's all I have on the rodeo grounds.
Question?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there further discussion about changing the egress into the parking area?
I did not exactly cover that. So on that same slide, that orange strip there at the bottom below the green, that is lazy lizard alignment. Hal and his team researched those rights of way there, and we have ample right of way. We're able to improve alternative means of ingress and egress. So this will be, as far as getting people in and out, it's going to be a kind of trial and error period, we'll obviously test out the main point for that south lot being Lazy Lizard for egress to get people out. As you're aware, when people are getting there, they're not all getting there at the same time. But when the rodeo's over, everyone leaves at the same time. So having that additional alternative route out will be huge. And then if we need to go back and revisit either road surface or the width of the road itself, we can do that. We did what we wanted to do. What was critical for us ahead of Turquoise Circuit was getting that parking expanded to its full capacity that we can, and doing it in-house at a tremendous cost and time savings has been critical.
Thank you.
Is it going to be ready for the Turquoise Circuit?
It's ready. It's ready now. They're spreading out recycled asphalt, I believe. Currently, they're doing that today. So and then Cave Creek Rodeo is stepping to the plate to mark and stripe parking spaces out there. So once again, I mean, just our partners and our ability to all pull in the same direction, specifically at that property, has been tremendous. And I look forward to it continuing.
Mayor and Council, if I can just jump into the one thing I just wanted to point out, he's very modest and just kind of touched upon it. But the key here is that Luke is an ex officio member of the Rodeo Days group. So that communication between the town and the organization that puts on these rodeos and their needs and continuing, that's very critical. Also, his connection and maintaining communications with the Turquoise Circuit, I think, again, is just showing that we're very serious about this and trying to utilize the rodeo grounds and try to make it really a great place for these events to take place. And as you heard earlier, we're pretty much booked through the end of the calendar year. And, that's no small feat for some of the word that's getting out about the grounds and how great they are. And it's the staff that's really worked very hard. And then the council that's given us the appropriations and money to be able to do what we can do out there. So I just wanted to point out and give a shout out to Luke.
Thank you.
At some point, could you get us the fee schedule for what it costs to rent it out, just so we had kind of an understanding of it?
The Councilman Rose, that's actually something that I will be bringing to council to review in the near term. Because as these amenities come online and the desirability of that facility grows, there are a lot of things that we would like to adjust in that fee schedule, and ultimately it would take council approval to do that. So those will be coming back to you real soon.
Yeah, the other thing you might want to consider when you're looking at that is talk to some of the local restaurants, when these events are out there, that they might want to sell sandwiches and things that are out there. And that would bring some more, additional sales revenue to us.
Absolutely.
Luke, when you bring that to council, I'd like to see the economics of what it costs to run it. As far as the current cost, the personnel mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is, what that income statement might look like as far as, are we breaking even?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to say kudos to you, Luke, and a little golfer's clap from everybody. Luke goes over and beyond the call of duty. He's valuable to us. Thank you, Luke.
So Luke, we don't have a full-time special events coordinator. Are you the person who's organizing, coordinating, managing the weekend activities out there?
It's really a team. We have a great staff. Our permit technician, Tracy Wilgus, handles all of the paperwork, all the typical bureaucratic red tape of, hey, I want to rent a government facility. She makes sure that they have their certificate of insurance, the paperwork filled out, they pay the appropriate fee. And then typically, as far as on the white glove or the field side, it's either a member of the facility staff, which consists of Terry Brown or Chris Meglis. I've had to run a tractor once or twice. Sometimes if we're not covered, we'll have a public works staff member interested in some overtime go out. Not every event asks for an attendant from staff on site for their event. This past weekend is a good example. They wanted an attendant on Saturday. They didn't need one for Sunday. So we were able to, we know well enough in advance when they need somebody, and we can move schedules around to do that. But really, once they've rented the facility once or twice, they're old hats. It's pretty easy to go through our process and get everything laid out. They get the keys, they use the facility, they leave it in great shape. That's the other thing too, is we've been very beneficial with the type of people, the type of users that are using it, that they really do leave the place better than they found it, which is more than you can ask for as being kind of a landlord.
Are all these events rodeo related?
Equestrian related. So we have the Cutting Horse Association, the Scottsdale Saddle Club, the junior pro rodeo, the junior rodeo. A good example is just the other day we had the WPRA, which is the Women's Professional Rodeo Association. They're renting the facility the week before Turquoise Circuit. They're going to do barrel racing and different female-related rodeo events. They're even going to do a pro-am so that kids can compete against professional barrel racers and everything. It's kind of cool. So yeah.
Curious.
Yeah.
Okay.
My goal, I mean, once we get a wedding booked out there, I can retire. That's the star I'm shooting for, is someone wanting to rent that facility to host a wedding.
Taylor Swift.
And maybe Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Yeah.
I thought it was Ozzy Osbourne now.
No. But thank you. All right, I'll continue along. Are we good on the rodeo grounds? All things going? So just wanted to give you a brief update. I just grabbed 3 development projects, one that's near completion, one that's getting ready to go vertical, and the other one that's getting ready to submit for permits. So starting on the left with one that's near completion is the Herald's Pavilion. Happy to report we got their height certification today. Anybody want to guess what their structure height is?
30 feet.
25.
50.
Price is Right rules, guys. You guys aren't helping. It's 24.5 feet.
Yeah, it's close. I got it. I
Yeah.
won.
Oh, Price is Right. You got to be under $1. Okay.
Oh.
So that's almost done. That's Harold's is one of the town core businesses that is actually adequately parked for their amount of square footage of building area. They've got enough parking spaces. That building, the location is pretty well situated between, you've got kind of a sloping hillside behind it, and then the building in front of it for sound attenuation and those types of things. So it's really something that the owners of Harold's have been talking about doing for several years. And we're able to finally pull the trigger this year and get it up fairly quick. The next project is Galloway Crossing. Those are the 32 apartments at Galloway and Cave Creek Road are basically our east section of town. That's Carefree right next to it if you're looking on the right side of
Is that
that.
the old windmill property?
Yes, the old Windmill Village. And they've completed all their underground infrastructure, everything. They're going to be starting their curb and gutter and pads very soon and going vertical very shortly after that. Then the last item is the Mercado, and that's the northeast corner of Cave Creek Road and Schoolhouse. It was entitled quite a while ago, and then they vested their project with a few different permits on the site just to keep it alive and going. They should, I hear, any week now we'll be turning in plans. I think if the next thing that shovel hits the ground, it'll be that project if I'm betting. So I just wanted to put that. Yes, sir.
Turn lane is supposed to be the
That will be going in as part of that development.
second thing. Is that going to clean that mess up? That is really an eyesore.
So the goal is with the right turn lane, and then there's an adequate landscape area before the parking begins. We did some horse trading with the right of way on Schoolhouse Road in order to get that right turn lane on Cave Creek Road. But yeah, there will be an improvement there beyond what's there now, which is kind of just a free for all. If that's what you're referring to, yeah, all that goes away. Correct. It'll at least be behind buildings. Right.
You don't like the chocolate cookie mobile that's in there?
Very good cookies. Very good cookies.
Hey, Luke, do you have any updates on Rebel Ranch or this, the old, place by the, vet to the right of it?
Yes, met with the former Leland's building, their owner today to discuss his intentions for remodeling that existing footprint and then also building another building next to that. So that'll be in the works.
Is it a
Maybe
bar,
maybe it will
is
be
a bar,
Mercado.
restaurant or something else?
It's going to be office and office retail. So,
Okay.
yeah.
What about Rebel Ranch?
Rebel Ranch is, I've not heard anything. The broker on that used to reach out to me once a month. He's not in a couple of months. So I don't know what, we've had different people that have looked to acquire that to do self-storage, mini storage, high-end RV garages, all types of things that are not necessarily what I would consider beneficial to the Cave Creek community, or B, things that aren't generating or deriving a transaction privilege tax. So they're either not allowed by ordinance or just not desirable by practice.
Do you know what they're selling that for?
Anecdotally, I've heard prices all over the board from 6.9 million to 9 million.
Okay.
What about the old Cartwrights?
Nothing on, I have not heard anything from them in quite some time either, but I can reach out to the group and see what their status is. Okay, so that we are moving right along. So mayor, members of council, the state legislature and governor created an amendment to state statute. It's called House Bill 2447. It essentially preempts all municipalities from requiring or mandating that site plans, development plans, preliminary plats, final plats, development plans, lot splits are no longer required to go through a public meeting, public hearing process to the planning commission and council. So I've put the implications of House Bill 2447 up there. This is something that is actually scheduled to go. So the implications of this are broad. We actually worked with legal counsel to go through our zoning ordinance, our subdivision ordinance, and our town code to make sure that we are cleaning all of those up to comply with. All they did was strike may and put shall. And that has had a large ripple effect, obviously, on our procedures and on how we process cases. So that's going to the Planning Commission for their recommendation on Thursday. It's going to be at a council meeting as soon as October 21st.
Now, you made that permissive. It takes control away from us. Is that not correct?
That is exactly correct.
Please be specific on exactly what control.
Us in that sentence is you.
Right.
No, it doesn't take control. What it does is it gives staff, it says you don't get to hold, you're not allowed to require hearing. So it does take control from you. Oh,
Right.
So what does it mean? You can split your lot anytime you want to?
No. So currently our town code requires any parcel that's the parent parcel is less than 2.5 acres. If they want to subdivide that into two, because the zoning would allow it.
Right.
So if you have an R35 lot, that's 2 acres and you wanted to divide it into 3 lots, council would have to approve that. Anything above 2.5 acres currently is an administrative function. Staff reviews those splits and decides whether or not they meet all the bulk regulations and components of a split before.
So the
approving.
stuff that we have, this DR, the 4.8, 4.7 acres, whatever that, it doesn't affect that, right?
No,
Okay.
no, these are lot splits only where the parent parcel is 2.5 acres or less.
Yeah, okay. So it's not going to affect the DR 190.
No.
All right.
Well, we have no control over this, whether it passes or not. We're just kind of like bystanders.
Essentially, when you see an HB or an SB in front of 4 numbers, they're basically telling you or telling us here's what you're going to do and how you're going to do it.
Mhm.
So this is where we're at.
But it still has to be zoned for 1 acre, correct? To split a 2.5 acre.
Or less. It could be R35 or R18, any of our zoning categories that are less than 2.5 acre parent parcels. So it'd be your DR43, R35, R18.
Is there a minimum that we can?
We still have all those controls as far as how many lots you can create is capped at 3. We still have all of those administrative controls in to create the guardrails for how much you can subdivide a parcel.
I can recall when the mayor came to you, it was less than a year ago, and told you about legislation that had the effect of preempting all zoning. This is a function of the landowners, the property owners, trying to take away your zoning powers. This is a lot better than that case. What this does though is it doesn't require hearings, but it doesn't prevent public discussion. And so what my other cities and towns are doing, they're making sure that on the website and on the Facebook, everybody is aware of what's going on at the staff level. These approvals now will be occurring at the staff level. But then what they're doing is they're making sure the public is aware. The way to combat these excesses is to have good land use procedures, and that's what you have here. Some of my cities aren't quite as good, but that's why I think this will work well. I mean, we've had discussions in this very room about who gets to decide site plans. Well, that's been decided now by your legislature. And so, but that doesn't mean you can't have staff making sure the public is aware of all their decisions, and doesn't mean that you can't ask for reports from staff. But it does mean you can't require hearings, and that's what the legislature didn't want. They thought you were getting in the way of development.
And just to piggyback on that, and part of our text amendments that are going to be brought before you will also include basically a staff summary of how we will engage and inform the public on these matters, because we have, I think 2% of our land area is commercially zoned. However, it's the most highly visible, highly trafficked property in town. So anything that happens on those lots, if a tree falls down, I get a call on a Saturday, that kind of thing. So people notice. So we want to make sure that they're aware and they're informed, and they're also maybe slightly educated on what zoning allows and doesn't allow. And, we hope for the best. So.
Just a quick question. Bill, does the public notification requirements stay the same like you would ordinarily do?
No, it does for things that are legislative, like zoning.
Right.
And subdivision. But everything else, they will make the decision, they will have notice. In fact, all we did was, I answered your question. We went to the code, we left the same notice requirements, but it isn't coming to you, it's coming to them.
Right.
So there is notice requirements, I apologize.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
I just was
Yes,
curious
there are
about
no,
that.
those stay intact, but they go to the staff level, not to the
Right,
commission or.
but that gives the public what they.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So moving on from HB 2447 into kind of dovetailing with that, the Planning Commission and Town Council work session. We've got that scheduled. It's a Town Council Planning Commission joint work session scheduled for Tuesday, October 14th. I heard earlier that the MAG is doing a meeting that same day at 5. I believe we were going to shoot to start this between 2 and 3. So if anybody wanted to attend that MAG information meeting, then for the right of way, then they'd be able to. And then just a couple of touchy-feely, but important nonetheless. If you're aware, the Tourism Bureau headquarters recently moved to 6061 East Cave Creek Road. That's immediately west of Dairy Queen. We are hosting a ribbon cutting ceremony at 10 a.m. on Thursday, October 2nd. The tourism group, the volunteers and coordinator are ecstatic with the new location. The signs are up. They've been kind of had it in a soft opening. They've been open different various points of time and day, even though their season doesn't really start in earnest until October. And then lastly, local landmarks. This may be the last time you get a report from me directly on local landmarks. As council's aware, this program was turned over to the Cave Creek Museum to administer. Town council allocated budgetary dollars to help administer that program or offset the costs that the museum is incurring to administer the project. I am serving on their group, their local landmarks group, to help kind of fill in the blanks on where they go, what they need to get, what all the different various moving parts. Happy to get the Rancho Manana and Cave Creek Building Supply pictures and narratives kind of done in the same similar vein of the previous one, so they could see how all of that comes together, how we go out to the business owners, the landowners that are getting this and having their sign off and buy off, and making sure that we're factually correct on everything before we put it on a plaque, and have a council member that moonlights as a geologist tell me my geology is all wrong on Black Mountain. So I appreciate that. And that is all I have. So with the local landmarks, the one that's not on here is Wagon Wheel Coffee Shop. That was the other one that this group selected. So in the next couple of weeks and or months, we'll be doing a award ceremony or recognition ceremony for Rancho Manana and Cave Creek Building Supply, and then Wagon Wheel probably in closer proximity to Cave Creek Rodeo. And then there are some others. Obviously, you can't put a plaque on every building in town, every pathway in town, every tree in town. But there is, a point at which everything will be out there as far as plaques. And then it becomes how do we push people to it? How do we continue to promote this program and our town? And it's
a building supply. That's just a retail store. Are we gonna put one in Walmart?
Well, so the Cave Creek Building Supply it does have a kind of storied history in the town. In the plaque, kind of tongue in cheekingly, there's probably not a place in town that doesn't have a nail or a rafter or something that wasn't sourced at Building Supply, at least up until 2005.
Frank, I don't think that's a good reason. That doesn't make it a landmark because somebody buys something there.
Well, it's
Otherwise,
long
Walmart
been an
would have
institution.
plaques and-
Sure. Understood.
It seems like there needs to be some kind of historical there needs to be significance beyond just being a building in town.
Right. And the museum, partially the town and museum have a list of criteria that it's got to meet and rise to that level. And you'll see as we get to kind of the end of the list, there'll be a few of these. But I've once again, one of the critical criteria is you don't need an address to find it. I don't know of anybody in this room that doesn't know where Cave Creek Building Supply is, just by saying, hey, I'll meet you at the Building Supply and we'll pick out our brass fittings for our hose. But yeah, we can debate on it. Yeah,
David.
I'll wrap it up.
Hey, Luke.
Yes, sir.
The tattoo shop, which is formerly the post office, I believe, isn't that the oldest building in town?
The oldest, longest continuously operating commercial building in town is right across the street and is a portion of Oregano's. And then you'd go over to Harold's. The original post office wasn't it off of Grapevine? Where the S turn is on Spur Cross.
Okay.
If you go left instead, it's about 2 doors down. On the right, it's a house, but that was kind of the original post office in town.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that the Wagon Wheel was once a stagecoach stop for Wells Fargo, that building.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay.
That's as we do these histories of buildings, it's the being able to vet the I heard from, no, that actually happened. And there's corroborated, substantiated evidence. So we've got to be it's threading the needle when there's a bunch of needles to pick from.
Is the Wagon Wheel gonna fix the the screens at least before we?
Probably not.
No, so once again, if you're, just real briefly, landmarks, we get a lot of this from business owners. Hey, are you gonna not let me paint my building ever again or re-roof it if the roof fails? No, this is really a celebration of kind of the different, unique, eclectic things in town that really make us set us apart from other places you'd find in the Metro Phoenix area and really Arizona, as far as I'm concerned. So that's all I got. I didn't even do a question slide.
Okay, I
because
move that this
figured-
meeting be adjourned. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Meeting adjourned.